extremely useful webinar on best practices for teaching online. And we are extremely privileged to have such a distinguished panel for our webinar today. And I'm very pleased to announce right at the very outset that we've had record registrations for this particular webinar with more than 2,800 participants from all over the country, from over 25 cities across the country. So just is an indicator of how important the subject is and how important teaching online these days is. Now, without much ado, I'll just introduce our first speaker, our keynote speaker, the spirit and the guardian angel behind the show, Professor 𝐾𝐲 Chaudhary, who is the Pro-Vice Chancellor of 𝐴𝐷𝐻𝑚𝑠 University. He's one of the leading academicians of our country as far as media and communication education goes. He's been involved with some of the major institutions in the country. That includes Amity Mumbai, it includes Symbiosis, it includes Whistling Woods International, Pearl Academy of Delhi, and what have you. He is known for his convergent approach to media education system, right from an integrated broad base leading to focused specialization at the top. He's a very known face on television, on the digital media, on the print media, and everywhere. He is our keynote speaker for the day. Sir, the stage is yours now.
Thank you. Thank you. You are so kind with your words. I would not claim so much of the reflected or refracted glory that you have imposed on me. But anyway, what's important is that we all are going through a very pressing and passing stage. And this is, in a way, a transitional stage where we need to really quickly upgrade ourselves. We are in a situation which anyway globally was evolving to make education techno-savvy, but the pandemic has made it so pertinent and so quick that we are caught unawares. I appreciate the 510 ladies and gentlemen who are on Zoom at this point of time. And I believe that 10 are on this group in this room and 500 in the other room where the audience, the attendees are there. And I'm told that 2,800 people have registered, so a large number would be on ABP Education Facebook Live as well as we talk. We have two speakers, a lady and a gentleman, and interestingly, both of them are young and advocates of everything youthful. So we have one from one of the top universities of the country, Dr. Chandrashekhar Ayappa Garbyal, who would be talking from Delhi, and she is from JNU, Jawaharlal Nehru University, one of India's 4 ranking universities for many decades now. And we have a young Turk, Professor 𝐾𝐲 Chaudhary from 𝐴𝐷𝐻𝑚𝑠 University, and the moderator will formally introduce both of them later on. I am just, I would not call my initial comments as keynote address, but I would rather call it as opening comments or opening remarks. Opening comments or opening remarks because I would be focusing on just a few initial points which will lead to the discussion by Professor Joy and Dr. Sandesha. 10 points I'll bring forth. Digital is what the new normal is teaching us to be in the space. But obviously, this is not an answer to education of the country. And the methodology cannot be 100% digital going ahead. It shall be blended or phygital, as I would love to call it, physical plus digital. We will always be based and rooted in the physical world, but interacting, studying, evaluating also in the digital world. So we'll move to physical plus digital, phygital, which many people call blended. That's my point number 1. Point number 2, the concept of traditional teacher and student would completely die out now. The teacher teaches in the classroom. The mentor mentors inside and beyond the classroom. So teacher will be replaced by mentor. Teacher introduces a structured syllabus, limits himself to the structured syllabus, says the last word about the syllabus, says the last word about learning, sets the question paper, evaluates and gives mark. That's the teacher. A mentor begins with a structured syllabus, moves on to an organic syllabus beyond the structure. Mentor introduces a topic, does not say the last word, leaves it to the learner to find it. A mentor may set up question paper or may set up an evaluation, may not be the last person to evaluate, can be one of the evaluators. And mentor also depends on a lot of peer learning, self-learning by the learner. Similarly, the student concept is also owned. A student studies in classroom, studies from the teacher, studies with a structured syllabus, studies for marks and grades and degrees, and studies at the end of it to ideally do a job. The learner begins from the classroom, can go beyond. So learner learns inside and beyond the classroom. Learner learns from the mentor, the peers, his own or her own experiences, that's experiential learning. By doing live projects, learning from the digital, that is internet, learning from observation of society or industry as such. So learners' learning resources are diverse. Where mentor aggregates knowledge from many places, learner also seeks learning from many places. A learner has a structured syllabus to start with, but on certain topics of his liking or her liking, goes into organic learning. Learning to learn is an important part of tomorrow. A learner is evaluated in multiple manner, not just a year-end or semester-end written exam. A learner learns for a lifetime use of what he or she is learning, at least for a major part of life, because much of what we learn today changes tomorrow. So learner learns to create a foundation with which he can or she can learn even more and different things in times to come. And learner, for him or her, examination marks are a byproduct and not the purpose of education. So this whole concept of teacher and student has to change to mentor and learner. The third point, structured syllabus is going to be gradually, somewhat, if not fully, obsolete. Because learning will now may begin with a structured syllabus, a very broad structured syllabus, but still, there will be a syllabus, obviously every university has to have, but it will largely move into organic learning. Organic learning is learning as we explore. And certain things, certain students can go deeper, certain other themes or topics, certain other students can go deeper. So organic learning goes beyond structured learning. And therefore, though there will be syllabus, there will be structure, but there is a new concept that will come up in a big way and has to come up in the world of digital learning, and that's called learning resources. And that's my next point. Aggregated learning resources will be multi-source. What are these sources? I'm sure Professor Joy and Dr. Sandesha will explain further. What can be the learning resources ahead? So far, it was the textbook and the teacher's explanation. Largely, these were the sources. At least at school, these were the only sources. At higher education, you did go to digital and search on topics and all. But there can be very many sources. I do not want to steal the thunder of Dr. Sandesha and Professor Joy. So let them have their moment of glory explaining different learning resources, which will be video, audio, podcast, graphics, animation, many other forms. And they need to be aggregated from multiple sources. So this will be the world of tomorrow. And along with this, the concept of flipped classroom, which existed for a long time but was not practiced very much. We go to a cinema hall, spend 200 rupees for buying a ticket, but before watching that film, we ask 5 friends, how is the film? We do a referral check. We do a sort of, review or study and all that. But we come to a classroom, and in some universities and institutes of India, the daily expense may be 1,000 rupees, which is far more than a cinema hall tickets expense. But we do not do a research on what are we going to do today in our classroom, in the campus. So when in the coming months, the number of days on campus will be less per week, which was 5 or 6 days a week, maybe 2 or 3 days only. In such a situation, each day's value would be far higher. And therefore, there has to be a clear-cut preparation for each, not just the teachers, mentors, but also the learners. Preparation for the day. And this preparation can only happen if the flipped classroom concept is implemented. In a flipped classroom concept, suppose I teach public relations, suppose public relations, a module is there, a course is there, and there are 10 topics in it. And the first topic is concept, methods of public relations, tools of public relations, and difference with advertising. Suppose this is topic number 1. Now in the new scenario, I as the mentor will aggregate learning resources for this topic from 10 different sources. One can be my own video in 10 minutes about the topic. Second can be my own PowerPoint presentation about the topic. Third can be a slide share link where a detailing of the tools of PR or ad and PR comparison is there, 1 or 2 links. Fourth could be a case study where the same company is on the same issue is doing an advertising campaign and a PR campaign, a case study of that to understand how different they are. The fifth could be a YouTube link of an expert of advertising talking on essence of advertising and an expert of PR talking on the basic premises of PR. And in this manner, I am not going more further, in this manner, 10 or 12 learning resources which are not very in-depth because this is only topic number 1 of the syllabus. Topic 2, 3, 4 will come and I will have to create aggregated resources even there. So these 10 aggregated resources I have to send to my learners, the batch, 5 days, 4 days in advance. They are supposed to have read, watched and heard. There are podcasts also, heard all of these before they come to the classroom. And in the classroom, I need not start from scratch. I can start from a quiz to understand the understanding level. I can start with a debate and make many people debate on that to understand their understanding level, comprehension level. I can check out quickly to understand if they have actually read this and watched it and heard it. And if they have done so, that itself is good enough to start my next journey. And the journey is more about doubt clearing. The journey is more about answering, more interactive, and new case studies to be given further. So this flipped classroom concept, aggregated learning resources driven education, is the order of tomorrow. Fifth point, storytelling. Every topic, therefore, needs to have a storytelling angle. Whether I'm talking through video, whether I'm talking face-to-face, or whether I'm presenting through a slideshow, graphical, or whatever format, there has to be a storytelling perspective there. Sixth point, content creation and content delivery. One of the primary jobs of this education, digital and blended and future blended education, will be that we need to, so far, we did not so much focus on content creation. We the teachers, I know there are 500 teachers online just now here on Zoom and many more on Facebook. We the teachers did not bother about content creation. There were syllabus, there were topics, we just had our knowledge, with maximum we made a PowerPoint and we gave a lecture. That's all that we thought. Now, for the first time, there will be need for creating animation, graphics, video, and very high-end PowerPoints, very embedded with online video and online podcast and audio and all that. This content creation is an art, is a science, and this is something that we have to create. I'm sure Professor Joy and Dr. Sandesha would talk on content in depth. Along with content creation, the new techniques of content delivery. One is to put them in Google Classroom as a store, storing there and people download and read it, watch it and all. That's one. But delivery will have many other mechanisms. How to make it interesting. So I'm sure again, the later speakers will deliver on that. So this content creation and delivery can lead to massive online course. And if you can really create a massive online course, let's say on media, on international relations, on sociology, on this and that, this becomes MOOCs. And MOOCs, already some attempts have been done in India, may not have been all the attempts very interactive, they may not have been very visually attractive, but their attempts have been done already. Whether it's SWAYAM and many others, several attempts have been done. And good, that's the starting point. What they have done, the next level of MOOCs, whichever university now does, will be a qualitatively different level now, will be a notch above. So Content creation and content delivery will be the sixth point that I would like to put forth. And the seventh point, learners' engagement. Delivery is not enough unless we engage the learner. A big difference here, please understand. In case of a classroom, I can do a bit of dramatics. I can impose my personality. I can impose the discipline of the university and many other things to create an ambience of learning, ambience of discipline, ambience of silence, and all that. And a bit of it is imposed, is from the top. It's a top down, that discipline. But in online, it is bottoms up. The people on the other side, just now you are 500 people on Zoom. Are all 500 queued into this discussion? I am not sure. I'm hoping they are, but I am not sure. Similarly, if I have 35 youngsters on the other side of the wall, the digital wall, whether they queued into it, any discussion we are doing, I'm not sure. Then how to queue in? Now there has to be interactive tools. There have to be online whiteboards. There have to be questions asked as you go. There has to be off the cuff, immediate surprise quiz, even when the discussion is going on. And there has to be many other mechanisms to engage the learner. Again, I look forward to the later speakers to tell us what could be the various tools of engaging the learner. Because this education is voluntary education. This education, because student is in his home, is at his place, is on the laptop and the mobile. At times the video and the audio is off. And many a time it may not be a Zoom platform or a Google Meet platform. It could be a different form of online education itself. So unless it is engaging, it cannot be, it is voluntary, and therefore it has to be engaging. So that's the next point. And with learners engagement, the next point, last point of online education would be learners assessment or evaluation. The assessment and evaluation cannot be the way we do face-to-face. It could be open book exam. It could be analytical exam. It could be case study based exam, a case study that they have never known earlier. Similar cases they must have known, but a fictitious case or a simulated situation may be given, and based on situation, response can be asked. You cannot be checking on definitions and classifications as we have been doing it all throughout, because they can be copy pasted from home. So what can you do? How can you have the examination which really challenges the thinking of the learner and really tests or evaluates the understanding level and not the memory level? We have been for a long time testing memory. Now is the time to test comprehension, analysis, application. And therefore, and there could be other ways of evaluation. I am not necessarily answering all, then this could be a full lecture. So I'm not doing that. There could be other ways of evaluation, online learners evaluation, that my two panelists would be speaking on. 8th point, digital assets management. Whatever we create and whatever the learners procure from us, aggregate aggregate on their own, there has to be a mechanism for digital assets management. The entire learning system has to go through an LMS, learning management system, which is based on a good instructional design, which I'm sure Professor Joy and Dr. Sandesha will explain at length. This a concept of ID, instructional design, and the concept of LMS. But this beyond the LMS, whatever we have gained, whatever has been aggregated on every topic, every course, has to be managed, and managed for a very, very long time. Because this learning doesn't end with an examination. The student concept ends with an examination, the learner concept does not. So therefore, digital assets management is another aspect of digital learning that needs to be brought in by the learners. The 9th point, and everyone would be saying, but I'll go to the 9th point last. I'll take the 10th point, what I have noted as 10th point. Voluntary engaged immersed learning. Online is voluntarily engaged immersed learning, and therefore, when you proctor it, it's a different. When you monitor it, it's a different. But when it is unproctored, unmonitored, what is the level of learning? The success of an online learning depends on the quantum of the internalized immersed learning when it is unproctored and unmonitored. That's the challenge of online learning. Can I make my content so interesting that I don't have to monitor whether the people have learned or not? I can straight go to evaluation without in between, without monitoring, without proctoring. Can we do that? Is another challenge. and it has to be interactive, visually appealing. Understood. I've already mentioned, I'm sure the other speakers will explain better. So interactivity is another major point. Higher engagement, absorption and retention of learning. This is required. And even practical, the practical actual final part of the practical we have to do physically. But a large part of the practical work, what we today do physically, can be done digitally through virtual labs and virtual studios. So the entire machinery or equipment introduction, functioning of each of these machines and components, and the role of the researcher or the person who is doing the experiments or the person who is using the studio at every level, all of this can be explained virtual lab and virtual studio through them. O-labs in CBSE courses already there, in school level, virtual labs are already there. And the last 40% of actually creating a new product or a new item, new concept, new thing, or doing the experiment and producing a particular chemical or something, that last 40% has to be physical. The 60% of what we today consider as practical can be digital. So these are the aspects of digital learning we need to look at. And the last point, which everyone keeps asking, but India's many people earn 50 rupees a day. How will they afford digital learning? But India does not have access, Indians do not have access to smartphone at every level. How will they do digital learning? As if the answer is with me or Uma Shankar or Dr. Sandesh or Joy. We do not have the answer. This is for the government to give the answer. First of all, if the society is economically divided, it is bound to be digitally divided. The problem is not in digital technology. The problem is in the economic division, the extreme class division of the country. That's another issue. That's a political economic issue. But the fundamental point is, because 70% cannot do digital learning, the other 30% should refrain from doing. That's stupid. That's a stupid thing. Because open heart surgery cannot be accessed by 70% of the people, the other 30%, if they have access to it, they cannot do it. They should not do it. It's completely stupid, unscientific, irrational way of thinking. So on one side, the 30% should do the online learning better. And the other side, the 70%, we have to reach out to them. Don't put 30% against the 70%. That is creating, that is hitting the essence of education. Even now, education is not accessible to 20% of the people, even in the physical world. That does it mean the other 80% stopped learning? No. The point is, we need to reach out to the 70%. For that, what is needed to be done? First, recognize. Just as roti, kapda, makan, shiksha and swasth, 5 key points of a dignified life, the 6th key point is digital access. Recognize it by the government, by the people, by the corporates. Public, private and people sectors. All the 3 sectors recognize that digital access is a human right. And if you recognize this, for example, we recognize right to liberty or right to freedom of speech is a human right. So we protect it. We fight for it. So first recognize that digital access is a human right. Then we'll protect it. We'll fight for it. That's the first point. Second point, ask the government if out of 200 plus governments of the world, more than 100 governments and the better run governments of the world spend more than 5% of their annual budget in education, public education. Why are we spending only 2.2% of the annual budget in private education? Why can't we double it or increase it to 5%? And this remaining 2.78% can actually go for digital access of government schools and colleges and the villages of the country. So whatever we are spending in public education, equal amount or more should be spent for the next 5 years to bring the entire 100% population within digital access. And it can be done. There are governments who have done it. Now you'll tell those who have done have only 5 crores people or 10 crores people. We are 130 crores. There are examples of 50 crores, 40 crores, 30 crores people also have largely got digital access. And dictatorship or democracies, people with huge populations have started getting it. But now is the time. We ourselves have given a Digital India slogan. Let us make it a reality beyond slogan. That's the second point for digital access divide bridging. CSR. Government has asked every company to give 2% of their profit for CSR, corporate social responsibility. Let the next 5 years, all CSR money be used for digital access of the children who cannot study digitally because they are deprived of the infrastructure. Let CSR money go there. Let villages after villages, families be given at least one Android phone, the cheapest one Android phone. Families after families, 1 child, 2 child, 3 child, at least one they can share. 1 million mobile movement should start. Every one of us has a second mobile unused, older mobile. Let's contribute. We contribute our less used but untorn clothes for people, less fortunate people. Why not also give away your second mobile individually? Why not corporates give their CSR money for creating digital access? Why not telecom companies tell that if a student has a valid iCard, then the student's internet cost will be half than what the others will pay, or 30% lesser, 40% lesser. If you can do 50% concession in trains and buses for students and for elderly people, why can't you do it for students and very elderly people? There could be a mechanism of doing it. We have already done it other cases. If governments can give bicycles to girls who pass class 10 in Bihar, Bengal, UP, it has been done. Why can't you give pads, which are almost of the same cost of the bicycles? And this could be gender neutral, boys and girls both. These are the ways by which we can bridge digital divide, and there are many other ways. We need to understand this is our human right going ahead. And there is the need for higher investment, both by families and individuals, and by governments and corporates. And NGOs also need to focus there. I appeal to NGOs who can really raise resources to come out with a 1 billion mobile movement in the country. 1 million, at least 1 billion to begin with. And if several NGOs do that, that would lead them to a great access of digital access for a large number of people. Yes, digital learning has come to stay. January 20th will never be January 2020. January 2021 will never be January 2020. It has come to stay forever now. But digital is not the only way. Physical has to be the base, digital the superstructure. In the Marxist language, typically, what people say infrastructure, superstructure, the base has to be physical and digital has to be the superstructure. And there has to be a blended learning. Thank you for your very, first of all, AVP, thank you for taking up this topic. And Surendranath College for Women, represented by Dr. Uma-Shankar Pandey. Both have taken up this topic. Thank you very much. Very, very important. The more we speak about these things, the better. The first month, March, students and teachers both were mentally resistant. Today, now, learners and mentors are both mentally open. And because it is open, Uma-Shankar Pandey has proposed this topic for discussion. And so many people have actually registered for it. And leading the biggest media organization of East and Northeast India and fourth largest in the country has taken it up for a discussion. Thank you very much for your patience. I look forward to very erudite and in-depth discussions by Professor Joy Chaudhary of Adamos University and Dr. Sandesh Rayappa of Jawaharlal Nehru University. Over to the moderator, Dr. Uma-Shankar Pandey.
Thank you, sir, for such a brilliant exposition on what the new classroom could be. Starting from the distinction between a student and a learner, and between a mentor and a teacher, you went on to talk about what is digital learning, about the use of structured syllabus, which could be obsolete in the near future, about multiple sources for our classroom, about aggregated learning resources, about interactive classes, about storytelling techniques in our classes, about the content creation and content delivery for our teaching learning processes. The assessment process also you spoke about. In fact, we have started having questions on assessment right at the beginning. So we will call out the questions as we go along. I'll request all participants to put in pointed questions, and we'll try and take in each and every question that we can. And I'm sure all the questions about the digital asset management, about internalized immersed learning, and the right to digital access, which is such an important area. And we are, over 500 participants here. Each one is an opinion leader. So if we believe that these solutions are possible, I'm sure we are, going for some major changes in our education system. As teachers, we've had to adapt to this new situation in, all of a sudden in a very, unprepared way. There was a lot of unlearning process also for on behalf of teachers, because we are so used to dealing with physical classrooms, we are so used to dealing with regular interactions, that this unlearning and relearning process is still a continuous process. So I'm sure that this webinar on best practices for teaching online, organized by Surendranath College for Women, along with avpeducation.com, will throw some very important points for discussion in times to come. Thank you, Professor Chaudhary, once again for your brilliant exposition. I'll request you to please stay along, and we'll have questions. And as we go along, we'll keep on putting out these questions. In fact, we've had questions from Parag Mandi Roy, who's already been asking about is there any secular platform about secure platform about how to take online examinations. Then we've had questions about these learning management systems. I'm sure our future speakers will talk about that. I have the pleasure of introducing Professor Joy Chaudhary, who is the Director of Operations, Center for Professional Studies, Adams University. He's an eminent leadership development professional. He's a motivator. He's an emotional intelligence coach. He's been in the field for more than 17 years, and he's a double postgraduate in linguistics and management, along with a master's in psychology. He has been a guest lecturer with multiple universities across Europe and US, and he is a very reputed professional dealing with online learning, especially these days. Now over to you, Professor Chaudhary.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate Dr. Pandey. Thank you so much, Ujjwal sir, for such an amazing opening out to this webinar. Thank you, Dr. Sandesha, for being there. And thank you everyone who have joined in today to understand that there is a change that's going to happen, and that's happening. And now if you look at the way teaching had been before COVID, and the way teaching is going to happen now, there's a lot of difference. The difference is not only in the way it is delivered, but it's also the way it is perceived. Let me try and make you understand a little bit about what we are talking about. Yes.
I just interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
Dr. Sandesha Raipa has a Google form for all our participants. It will be uploaded on Zoom right now. We'll request all participants to please respond to that Google form here on Zoom. It will also be uploaded on Facebook Live. So your responses are extremely important. Thank you so much, sir, and sorry for interrupting.
No worries. Thank you. Now let me start off with the whole world has seen the change. The whole world has been going through this change of moving from a normal classroom scenario to digital learning. In India, the reason had been spoken out by Ujjwal earlier. Because of digital division and because of economic conditions, there had been multiple issues where it was not possible. It was not happening as such. And the teachers also were not very comfortable getting into an online classes, rather than they were comfortable what they had been doing for so long, right? But this three and a half months has brought in that change. I always say this, any kind of disruption always leads to innovation. And I think that's what has happened. Everyone, all the teachers have gone ahead and started taking this initiative and getting into this training program, training online, teaching online, which is fantastic. But my question always stays, that is sending documents through WhatsApp, it's not online training. Online training is much more. Online training covers multiple gamuts of training, all right? So first of all, you are not in front of them. How would you force them to listen to that, or to read it, or to learn it, and make sure they understand those? I think there are multiple aspects of psychological part of it, which is educational psychology and normal teaching and training perspectives. So before I go ahead, I would like all of you to be patient. I'll get on with a presentation so that things become a little clear. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Yes. Is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Lovely, lovely. Now, before I go ahead and start talking about the art of teaching online, the first thing I would talk about is, before we go anything, before we try and understand what online training is and what is it all about, how do we get into it, we need to ask the following questions. The first question is, what would they learn? The second one is, why would they learn? And the third is, how would they learn? Now, let me quickly, take a little understanding, or take a little time in discussing on a different thing. There was this gentleman called Knowles' 5 assumptions of adult learners. So this is what is very important. When I'm talking about, let me start off talking about, see, we got to understand this, a small kid in junior school, or else in standard 3rd, 2nd, 4th. Teaching them is very different, all right? So online training or education, we would not talk about it. What we are talking about is probably in the college area, all right? Now, this is the 5 assumptions of adult learners. Now, the first one is called self-concept. Here, the person is trying to mature. Psychologically, this person is maturing and he thinks that I am more independent now. I am more self-directed human being. I have transformed from a dependent personality towards one of being a self-directed human being. That's one which we have to keep in our mind. Now, the second one is adult learner experience. As the person matures, he accumulates a growing reservoir of experience that becomes an increasing source of learning. That means when I get into your class, probably my brain is filled with certain things of that subject, or certain points about that subject, all right? Now, we always talk about unlearn and then learn and stuff like that. But then again, their experience matters. So when you start teaching to them, you have to start off from there, from what their experiences are. The next one is called readiness to learn. As a person matures, his readiness to learn becomes oriented increasingly to the developmental tasks of his or her social roles. Let's try and understand this when I talk about what is readiness to learn. I'm going to say, when I am teaching someone, if the person is not interested, or he or she feels that I am, how would that help me? All right, we always talk about WIFM, all right, what is in it for me, all right? So how would that help me? It's very important. The role I play at this point, I am a developing person. I am grown up now. All right, how would that help me if I want to do engineering? I want to sit for my gate, and I want to join a PSU. How would that, whatever subject you're teaching, how would that help me? I think that's very important for all of us to understand as educators. The fourth point is called orientation to learning with maturity perspective changes. From postponed application of knowledge to immediacy of application, and according to his or her orientation towards learning shifts. I think this is important for us to understand. That are we able to give them certain learning which they can apply immediately? I think this is essential for all of us to understand. fifth and the last but not the least, it's called motivation to learn. Now this motivation, the moment a person grows up and slowly he grows up, the motivation becomes more internal in nature. It's no more I would come to the class, all right, and I would listen to the lecture. No, I would like to go to the class and listen to the lecture because I want to know about it. It becomes more internalized. The motivation is more intrinsic motivation. Now, quickly I'll talk about 4 principles of andragogy, which is the adult learning. One is called problem-centered, where adult learning is more problem-centered than content-centered. That means whatever I give them is not important. What I give them, does that help them in solving their problems, is more important. Second is called relevance and impact. Adults are most interested in learning subjects that have relevance and impact to their job or personal life. For example, as I told you, I am an engineering graduate. I've just joined my first year engineering. I want to, after finishing off my engineering, I will sit for my GATE and I want to join a PSU. Now, how would that help me is very important, all right? The relevance of the subject, the relevance of the knowledge, and the impact of it is what that's going to matter. Next comes the adult learner experience. Experience, including mistakes, provides the basis of their learning activities. I'll talk about this a little later when we would do online teaching or creation of online content. This is very important. We need to check with them how is their experience. When we do an activity, when we give them an activity and they do an activity, we would like to know whether they liked it or they didn't like it. If they didn't like it, what is it they didn't like it? Can we change that? Can we give them a different activity? We need to work on those. Now comes in the involved adult learners. The most important thing is you got to involve them in their learning process. You got to tell them that how are you planning to teach whatever you are teaching. And then obviously they need to know how the evaluation happens. You got to involve them in the entire learning process. Keep them excited. Make them interested in their entire process of learning. Now I would go to, we also as educators, when we create content, one thing is important, we need to understand how people learn. As I asked that question, how would they learn it? I think it's important to understand Bloom's taxonomy here. The first thing when we talk about knowledge is great. Knowledge is fantastic, no questions about it. But when I talk about knowledge, what am I talking about? I'm talking about remembering previously learned material. And how would there are a lot of questions about assessment. And let me tell you that once we start creating assessment, all right, whether we are talking about a formative assessment or a summative assessment, we need to understand that every part of Bloom's taxonomy can be assessed differently. For example, when I'm trying to assess knowledge, I have multiple other things to get it done. For example, how they arrange certain knowledge, how they define something, how are they able to duplicate? Once they memorize, can they recall, or can they recognize something they have seen earlier? I think these are all attributes of knowledge. The second part we talk about is called comprehension. When I talk about comprehension, I'm also talking about grasping the meaning of the material and can be assessed through classification, description, identifying something, report something, or restate something. The third is called application. Once we have got knowledge, we understood that knowledge, am I able to apply it in my day-to-day life? That's where my importance of knowledge comes in. So using learned material in new and a concrete situation. So what we are talking about is application. We are talking about choosing something from 2 different options: illustration, solve, and write. The fourth, we're talking about analysis. Analysis is what we're talking about. We are talking about breaking down the material into multiple component parts and understand the structure, how it is formed. So we have analyze, we have categorize, we have criticize, distinguish, and test. Next comes in synthesis. When I talk about synthesis, I'm talking about whatever has been learned and then broken down during analysis, can I assemble all of them together? All of them together. It reminds me, whenever I talk about creation of content or teaching or education, it reminds me of a jigsaw puzzle. I have seen a small kid sitting with a jigsaw puzzle, and she is with so much of intent trying to fix up the jigsaw puzzle. Now, after an hour and a half time of hard work, she fixes it up. All right, she solves it. And now what's next? You got to break it down again and form it again tomorrow, right? I always talk about when you're creating content, it is very similar to the way you do jigsaw puzzle. So when I talk about synthesis, I'm talking about assembling parts together to form a new whole. They can be assembling, it can collecting, manage, organize, and propose something new. Now comes an evaluation. Now when I talk about evaluation can happen for every part when what we discussed. Okay, judging the value of the material for a given purpose. All right. So when I talk about knowledge, I can evaluate the kind of knowledge I've gathered. All right. So I keep giving this example to all my teachers and trainers that what's your job? When they tell me that my job is to teach or train people, I tell them no. If teaching or training was a job, I could have had anyone doing it. Your job is to add value to those group of people who are sitting in front of you or listening to you or talking to you or comes to you to understand a subject. Your job is to add value to those people. Before you have taken a class, the way they had been or they had been thinking about something, after the class of yours, they have to think differently. There has to be value addition towards their holistic growth. I think that's what is important. So after Bloom's taxonomy, let me quickly move into what we would talk about the original process. When I talk about content creation, the first thing when I talk about instructional design is to create a method, or we talk about instructional strategies, right? So there had been multiple. We started off with something which is called waterfall model, and then we moved into Dick and Carey model. But one of the model I would discuss today is the most common, most popular model called ADDIE model. Now, when I talk about ADDIE model, what am I talking about? I'm talking about analysis, I'm talking about design, we are talking about develop, we are talking about implementation, and last but not the least, we are talking about evaluate. Now I would not get into implementation and evaluation today because we do not have it. It's a huge subject. Now when I talk about this, I keep talking about it's not a one-day training also. I'm saying it takes a lot of time, and today it's only an hour, probably 3-hour program. I would talk to you all about half an hour, 45 minutes. I don't think we would be able to cover up entire. I'll give you just an overall idea. Now, analysis is when we are trying to talk about what are we planning to do. When I talk about my subject, let me talk about any subject. You pick up a subject like physics, chemistry, you talk about electrical engineering, a subject, or you talk about humanities, you talk about literature, you talk about culture, you talk about anthropology, sociology, psychology, any of that. Whatever subject you are working on, the first thing you got to do is analyze before you get into delivery or creating a content for a certain specific group of people. The first phase, the first part of the analysis phase is called training need analysis. Why do you need to give them that training? What's the requirement? What do they get out of it? The second one is target audience analysis. What kind of people, what kind of demographic condition they're coming from, what kind of experience they've had ever earlier, all of them together. Third, but not the least, it's called the task and the topic analysis. Now, what's the task and the topic analysis? Every time you start working on a topic, you need to understand in that topic, what is it you're looking at? For example, one small little sentence which you want them to understand, memorize, keep it in the head, drill it inside the head. That's what is important. And how do you create a task so that you understand that's been drilled inside the head? All of these things together forms the analysis phase. Let me quickly get into design phase. Designing the instructional strategies, activities, and assessments that will achieve the learning objectives. Now, I saw quite a number of questions when I talked about, when we started this webinar. A couple of questions had been based on assessment. How do we do assessments? And I would also talk about content is not important. Important is not what I am saying. Important is how I am saying what I'm saying. I think that's very important, right? Because why would people sit and listen to you? They are not even inside the classroom. I'm saying when they are inside the class, they are supposed to stay. That's the terms and conditions you have put forward. But when they're sitting at home, they do not have that terms and conditions, right? It's no more there. It's their prerogative. Whether they want to sit, they would sit. If they don't want to sit, they would not sit. So whatever you are trying to say, you got to make them interesting for them. You got to make it so interesting they cannot get up from their seat. They would stop, go to the washroom, come back and start again. That's how you want to create. That's what designing phase is all about. Let me quickly get into design phase, comprised of 5 parts. First thing we do is called learning objectives. We would try and work on what objectives we would work on for each and every lesson plan. Then we'll get into sequencing, how we would sequence the entire content. Third comes in the instructional strategy, which is how I'm going to give it to people. Fourth comes in the delivery strategy, that how it's going to put up in the LMS. We were talking about, there was some people talking about LMS. LMS is the learning management system. Whatever you create is put up there, and the person when sitting at home can access that, get into that LMS, go into that subject, and can study. All right, that's the delivery strategy. Then we have the evaluation strategy, that how much did they learn and what is the aspects of it. Now let me quickly get into a normal tutorial sequence. First is introduction, then we get into quickly basics of the learning. Third, we get into advanced part of it, that means the detail of what we have already said. And fourth comes in the summary. Fifth is the assessment, and we are done. This is called a classic tutorial sequence. It's very normal, very classic sequence. The next one is called the activity-based sequence. Everything stays the same. You introduce the topic, you get into the content. Now, what comes in is your activity. You create an activity, then you make them do that activity, get into summary, and then do a test or an assessment, and then you end. But this is one of my favorite. My favorite is called knowledge-based sequence. What do you mean by knowledge-based sequence? I'm going to say, I would not allow someone, this is when it is linked, I would not allow someone to move from first module to the second module until and unless they know about their first module. They have passed the assessment. They have cleared the assessment on the first module. I love the sequence because it allows them to learn, and they can also pace their learning or understanding as they go by. Right, so they can take their time. They can go through it. If they do not understand, they can go through it once, twice, 3 times, and then they give the assessment to clear it up. All right, so it is called introduction. They can again test, content, test, again content, test, content, summary, and you end. Now we move into the developing piece. We develop activities. We would develop what we are going to do. Now, in the development phase, we have content development as a first part. We develop the content. Whether a lot of people talked about, is it good? We have a video of the professor, lecturer giving a live video, or we can change it to something else. My suggestion always is give it always a mix and match, right? So it's always advantage to give them something which is mix and match, a little bit of the lecturer's face and the lecturer talking, and then bring in something else. You can have graphical representations, you have animation, you can have some other video links, and all of them, and then move on. So content development is the first part, then comes in something which is called storyboard development. Storyboard is what you would say and what is the visual along with it. Third is the courseware development, developing media and the interactive components, producing the course in different formats for web delivery. So you got to chop and change the way you deliver it, and that's the courseware development is your LMS development, how you move it up and send it across to the students. Structure of a normal typical e-lesson. We start with learning objectives, introduction, content, summary. I am not going to get into too much of theory. I would tell you what I'm trying to get into. Now, 𝐃𝐲 sir was talking about student engagement, and I would love to tell you all that it is one of the first and the most important aspect of your online training. Now, online training, as I told you, they are not in front of you. They are sitting at home. You cannot even control them. All right, forget about it. So it is important you bring in an engagement with the student, you and the student. That means not you as such. It is the online digital content, okay? Now that content has to be created in such a way that it keeps the student engaged with the curriculum, with the content, with the training. So there are 6 aspects I usually talk about. There are multiple things we can also talk about. The first thing I talk about is keep it short and sweet. There, if you look at the people today, our attention span is reduced to the minimum today, all right? So if you keep more than 15 minutes, 20 minutes of one single video or a lecture, all right, people would not listen. They would get bored. Most of the time I have heard when I was doing research, most of the time people said that, oh, you know what, I get sleepy when it is more than 10 minutes, 15 minutes of video. It gets boring after some time, all right? I think that's very important. Keep short and sweet. Another thing, 𝐃𝐲 sir was talking about storytelling. You are not there. Bring in that personal touch. You are not there in front of them. You have a separate connection, separate bonding with students. All right? Bring in that. Create a storytelling session in the beginning or after every, probably 15, 20 minutes. Bring in that. All right? Then we have the track the progress. Let people have a tracker which says you have done till here. Why I'm telling you this? Because the learner would like to know how much he has done. I personally, when I sit and do an online learning, online course, I would like to know after a week's time how much I've done, what amount I've completed, and how much am I left with. I think that's very important. So you have a tracker on top of somewhere where it continuously shows that how much time is spent and how much is left. I think that's very important. Then we come to something called checkpoints. Checkpoints are nothing but, every time you have a checkpoint where you ask them that, did they understand whatever happened? For that thing, what I can do is we can add an activity or a small little assessment at that point in time, so that we can check their knowledge, check their understanding, and how the progress is happening. Then we have regular notifications, connected engagement is very important. How do you create that? Send them notifications, you create automated notifications, that can happen. You can operate from your email address, that can happen. There are multiple ways of creating notifications, and nowadays automated notifications are very normal, very common. You can always create that after every couple of days, he gets a message, he gets a mail stating how is he liking it, or what's happening, what are the changes that he wants to bring in, and stuff like that. All right. Create a community. I have heard multiple people today, multiple teachers I had been talking to, multiple trainers I had been talking to, they create a personal group in Facebook or in any other social media. Whoever their students are, they make a small little group and they keep interacting on that subject, probably whenever they want to. All right. I think this is important. This is how you create more engagement. And another thing, very important, I'll come to that a little later, how you can keep them glued to the laptop or the phones we are talking about. Recorded presentations. I always say this, it's important when you create a recorded presentation, it's important you follow certain rules and regulations. It's just not the entire thing altogether. All right. The first thing is chunk it, break it down into small little pieces. 5-minute, 7-minute pieces, small little pieces. Second one is illustration. Lot of pictures, illustrate multiple things. Do not write too much of text. Do not give too much of content in text, because that's gonna bore people to death. All right, do not do that. Bring in curiosity. One of my favorite is this. Pick curiosity. What you do is start off with a kind of a question. All right. Question that it's kind of probably thought-provoking question, right? Ask some question. What do you think? Why this doesn't happen? We have normally seen. I keep giving these examples to people that when we have a single S. All right. This is a very simple example. For example, SEE, I say see. So SAW, I say saw. But the moment I say SUGAR, why don't I say sugar? I say sugar. All right. Why do you think it happens that way? All right. Can be a thought-provoking question. I'm saying it's very important to get into that. Start off with a question, so that they get glued onto it. Next is design. I think it is obvious if you understand. I try and bring in lot of design elements in my own small little presentations. If I do a PowerPoint presentation, I try to bring in lot of design elements, because that is what makes people a little interested in what you're saying. There are a lot of colors, and you have to understand what contrast is. All right, when you have a lighter background, you have a darker colors or darker font sizes. But when you have dark background, you have to have lighter colors and backgrounds and font sizes. So let me go to the next. This is very important. Online education would be dependent on this. If you cannot inspire actions from people, things are not going to work. If you got to understand this, that when I talk about inspiring actions, what am I talking about? You would find multiple people. They join a training program, they join a course, they drop out, they do not finish, all right, or they take a lot of time to finish, all right. Now the question is, are we making them bored? Are we making them bored with whatever content we are trying to get, right? So we have to inspire actions from them. They need to take actions, right? Massive actions. So when I talk about inspiring actions, usually I talk about two different methods. One of them is articulate results. This is more motivational perspective. Tell them what they would get if they finish off this. Where would they reach? How would they move to the next part? I think articulation of results is very important. And second is testimonials and key studies. Tell them, talk about what has happened. You talk about multiple people, what they have done, when they became, all right. So if you want to become a scientist and do something in research area, give them examples based on that, and then key studies from there. All right. So that you can inspire them to take action. Now I come to the most important aspect of content development, which we are talking about, graphics and animations. Now graphics are of multiple kinds. We have decorative graphics, we have representational graphics, we have mnemonic graphics, we have organizational graphics, relational graphics, transformational graphics, interpretive graphics. So first one is called decorative graphics. Let me show you what it is. This is a decorative piece. So when you are trying to give them something and you decorate it, give it to them, it looks nice, they feel good when they read it. not too much of reading material as we discussed earlier. Now this is also something which is decorative graphics. All right, so you want to give a quotation, you want to give them a sentence which you want them to learn and to remember. Wrap it around is different, a nice little packaging, and then give it to them. And I'm sure that they would remember the packaging. All right. Now we have representational graphics. When we talk about representational graphics, we're talking about this. Farm animals, we have multiple farm animals together in one single graphics. Or we talk about this. All right, these are all representational graphics. Now we go to mnemonic graphics. Mnemonic graphics are like this. So we're talking about homes. One is Huron, one is Ontario, Michigan, Erie, Superior. All right, so these are homes. Now we have another one which is Rastakar. And so when I talk about this road, whose road is this? So this is a kind of a mnemonic graphic. Quickly let's move to organizational graphics. We are talking about this as an organizational graphic, what we talk about, all right, fire watch management, the hot work operator, and the permit issuer. These are called organizational graphics. This is called organizational graphics. So after organizational graphics, we'll come to relational graphics. That means these kind of graphics create a relation between two things or multiple things. All right. So we can use it for everything. You name it, and we can use it. Whether it's say science subjects, whether it's engineering subjects, whether we are talking about liberal arts and you know, language, everything. We can use relational graphics. Instead of stating something, instead of giving a sentence or paragraph, I would like to use more of graphics so that they understand it better. So these are called relational graphics. So let me move from here to the next, which is called transformational graphics. So something, there is a lifespan. So when I talk about lifespan, everything comes with a lifespan. All right. So there is a transformation that happens from the way you are born and from the way you grow up and become a great leader. These are all transformations. Any transformation can be shown through graphics. All right. So let's try and see one single kind of graphic. This is, look at this. All right. The transformation of a butterfly. All right. We can show this through graphics. So we can show multiple things, transformations through graphics. So this is called interpretive graphics, where we are trying to interpret multiple things. This is how to prevent COVID. We have cover coughs, avoid close contact, avoid touching, clean your hands all the time, clean and disinfect, stay at home. So this is called in the interpretive graphics. Now, once graphics are done, I would quickly, before I move to animation, anyone who has any question at this point in time? Or do we take questions once we are done?
I think better at the end. There are
Lovely.
many questions in the chat anyway.
I'm sorry. I was not able to see the chat, so I would get into the chat once I'm done with this, and then we can discuss.
Yeah, please.
Sure. Great. So we start with whiteboard animation. Now let me show you a quick video of what whiteboard animation is. Okay, so next we move to something which is called character animation. Now, when I talk about character animation, we use, let's try and see how character animation is. Can you see this?
Yes.
Can we speed this up because the audio is not audible?
Audio is not audible?
No, sir.
So you may drop this and move to the next.
Yeah, that's what I was planning to do. Let me go into cartoon style.
Full screen. Full screen.
I'll do that. I'll do that. Let me open this. Can you all see this?
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, we can skip the animation part and go to the next part of the presentation.
Sure. So when I talk about animation, there are multiple animations you would find. There are multiple different kinds of animation you would find. We have animated infographics. So when I talk about infographics, what you saw me using in my presentation is called infographics. When you make these infographics move, all right, that's called infographic animation. You also have something which is called kinetic typography. That means, for example, you have written here something which is called history, all right, and suddenly the history starts moving. And this letter, this word moves out and comes in, for example, 1 year, all right, and then comes in the First World War or a Second World War or whatever. You can use that. That's called kinetic typography. Then you have stop motion animation. Then you have live animation. Now, after animation, let me quickly move to the last bit of it. When I talk about in videos, I'm talking about instructor-led video. I'm talking about demonstrations, scenarios, simulations, learner-generated videos, and docudrama. Now, instructor-led video, we all know. When I talk about instructor-led video lectures, I'm talking about you giving a lecture. The shooting happens for not more than 15 minutes because you give them in chunks. Do not give them all together. Break it down into small little pieces, all right, and then give it to them. Add a lot of animation there, a lot of graphics there. And then comes in demonstrations for multiple different subjects where you need to demonstrate something. You take a video of something, some action happening, some process happening, some procedure happening. So those are for procedural perspective. Then you have scenarios and simulations. Simulation can happen for a lot of activity and assessment scenarios also. All right. For example, when you want to bring in that interactive session, that's when you bring in the scenarios and simulations. Learner-generated videos where someone is learning, someone is in the lab doing something, someone is in the classroom trying to give a lecture, give a presentation, you video that and send it across. That's learner-generated videos. Docudrama, predominantly history, predominantly old, some actions, activity, something that has happened earlier you are trying to represent, you can create a scenario. For example, it's like theatrical presentation. All right. Now, after this, we come to something which is called, remember this, this is the last part when we are talking about combining everything together. We are talking about content for lessons, ensuring the objectives are met. Use audio, video, podcast, graphics, animation, simulation, and all of them. Bring in objectives. Need to carefully draft the learning objectives so that you have the module outcome to it. Activities and assessments, practice exercises, additional examples whenever required. The more number of activities you do, the more learning is done. You have glossary. This is also has to be put up, all the words and the relevant descriptions. Recommended reading, suggestion for all recommended reading and resource pointers. Now, once I talk about, for example, when I'm talking about this, yes. So once I'm talking about creating the entire content, if you would realize that first thing I did is I analyzed, I thought, I sat down at the piece of paper, pen and paper, I wanted to write it down. I write down everything about what I want to give. It is important to understand what is it I want to give to them. What is it I want them to understand and memorize. They want to keep in their head. I want that is very important. I want that all of you to understand that nothing matters. First sit down with a piece of pen and paper, write down what are the 3 things, 4 things important as an objective. What you want them to understand. Now, how do you give it to them? When I talk about how do you give it to them, there are a couple of things you need to write down. You're going to create the storyboard, all right? Divide the piece into 2 parts. On one side, on the left side, you can do all the narration piece, and the right side, you do the visuals, the graphics, what you want to give. For example, when I'm teaching a part of psychology, for example, social psychology, any part of social psychology, for example, cognitive biases, I would write down what I would write on my left side, and then right side I would write a design or an animation or a graphic, whatever I would give there. I think these things are very important when you design it. Now comes in the develop piece. You have to sit down with the media people who would develop it, try and make them understand that it is essential that every minute of my presentation people are engaged. People are hooked onto it. They want to know more. If they want to know more, then only your training is successful, your teaching is successful. If they are waiting to go to the next level, I think that's when you develop thing and then move into it. All right. I think this is what I wanted to talk to you all about, the entire process of understanding Knowles' principles of adult learning. I wanted you to understand Bloom's taxonomy of how we learn, and then we come into the development piece of it. Because content in itself is not important. What is important is who is taking it and how are you giving it to them. I think I would end here. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Pandey. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Professor Chaudhary, for such a brilliant overview of content development and the possibilities of new age classrooms. And starting off with the Knowles concept, of self-concept of adult learning, of readiness to learn, of orientation and motivation. and then going on to Bloom's taxonomy of knowledge and comprehension and application and all that. And the one thing which would be a big takeaway, and there have been a lot of comments on this as well, about the ADDIE concept that you spoke about using analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. And then finally about how to make the classroom more interesting, how to make the students more interactive, and how to get them to through the knowledge-based sequences, through short and sweet engagements with the students, as you said, through storytelling processes, building up upon what Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary said in his keynote, and then tracking the progress of the students. So important that we through various FDPs on the HRDC platforms also, this learning management system is a very new thing that all of us are learning, especially the Google Classroom intricacies. And a lot of this tracking progress and regular notifications and creating community, they are part of that. And I'm sure there have been a number of questions on, how to understand the basics of this animations and video development and content development and so on and so forth. Now, this is just, the proper time for us to, as communication and media teachers, to talk about the things that we've been doing. So there are a lot of free and open software available, and there will be a number of workshop series on these things for content producers. So very important that as teachers, we realize the possibilities that the multimedia dimension offers us. A few years ago, I had the honor of visiting the National Geographic headquarters in Washington, D.C. And there was such a wonderful way they used to, involve Harrison Ford's movies to explain all those, concepts of archaeology. And many of us, been using Bollywood content to, drive about communication processes, so on and so forth. Now, this is something that will have to lead on to other subjects as well. Thank you again, for giving us so much joy, when it comes to teaching. Sorry for this.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And,
I think the only reason I didn't touch on the LMS is very technical piece. All right, we have two different kinds of LMS. One is called cloud-based, the other one is called shared LMS. So they're very technical. So we here as teachers, as trainers, if we take too much of LMS load on our head, it's only going to be messy. I think we should focus on content, creation of the content, and delivering it to the students.
Absolutely. So we've been, going through a lot of these, even open broadcaster software kind of things to make our presentations much more lively and interactive and useful for students. Thank you once again on behalf of Surendranath College for Women, and our principal, Dr. Purnima Biswas, for this engaging session. There have been a number of questions, more than 100. I cannot take all of them. But Dr. Mohitosh Gayan, he's spoken about, whether we need to cut down on the curriculum in view of the pandemic. Dr. Tanuja Basurai had a similar question. Professor Smita Majumdar, she had a question on same lines. Professor Shottabrata Paul, Professor Nushat Zahra. Many of them, they've been talking about, how the changed learning ecosystem should lead us to, newer dimensions as far as curriculum design and all these things are concerned. One thing for all the people who are putting up questions there, the digital divide thing has been answered by Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary in the best possible manner. There is nothing more we can talk about that. So if we lead our questions more to pointed questions about content development, content delivery, and how do we make it more interactive online, then that would be a lot more useful. We'll have lots of time for questions. I had questions from Dr. 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐜𝐵 Bhattacharya, who's been talking about how to bring about changes in online teaching learning processes. Then we've had question about Dr. Sunita Dey, what about there should be an option to choose modules, come back to some as per requirement. So we'll come to all that in a moment's time. Thank you once again, for this discussion at the webinar on best practices for teaching online, organized by Surendranath College for Women in association with abpeducation.com. Now we are going on to a very distinguished speaker all the way from Delhi, from Jawaharlal Nehru University, Dr. Sandesha Raipa Garbiyal. She is an assistant professor in the Linguistic Empowerment Cell. She specializes in the area of English language teaching, and she has a PhD on syllabus design for communication skills. And she uses her experience for running positive, focused, and energized classes. She has gained experience in planning and developing curriculum, both in English as a second language, as well as English as a foreign language scenario. She is a very well-known name in online training programs, and she has addressed a lot of such sessions all over. When I spoke to my friend Dr. Anup Das, he was a faculty at our college at one point of time. The first name he says that is of Dr. Sandeshwara Garga. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your time, and we are looking forward to your presentation. Now the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Pandey. Thank you, Professor Chaudhary. Amazing. I mean, it's going to be very difficult for me to speak right after you, but I'll do my best, sir. And I think it's going to be perfect harmony because Professor Chaudhary has very rightly, he's placed the basic foundation of what we're going to talk about today, about the best practices of online education. So he's made it much more easier for me. So thank you so much, sir. All right. So I'll begin with sharing my PPT. So just give me a second, please. All right, I hope my PPT is quite clear. Yes, okay, all right. So, good morning, good afternoon, and apni kemno ache Kolkata. Salam alaikum, kaifa halik to the people who are joining us from the Gulf. I actually am thankful to all the people who filled up the Google form because through that I have got responses from over 200 people who are currently live with us from Facebook as well as the participants on Zoom right now. It's very interesting. Would you like to know a little bit of the demographics of today's participants? You'll have to wait for a few more minutes then. So as I would like to show you this particular place that you see right now. This is JNU's convention center. So welcome to JNU, the virtual world. So first of all, let me get everyone's attention. And how do I do that? So I would request everybody to kindly place their pens and pencils down and listen to a few words that I'll be saying. Listen carefully. There will be an activity where you'll need to maybe repeat it. Okay? No cheating. Just remember, listen carefully. So the words are, there are 13 words. Dream, sleep, night, artichoke, blanket, pillow, mattress, alarm, nap, insomnia, tired, nod, snooze. All right? So those were the 13 words. All right? I'm not going to repeat myself. Sorry. All right. So everybody, I would like to say a little bit of a story first of all before I actually begin to the juicy part, the meaty part rather. So imagine that you as a person want to go and fish, and you go there and you're waiting for half an hour, then it becomes maybe 45 minutes and you haven't caught anything. And you're waiting and you're waiting, a lot of other people join in, and suddenly you see another person who's there and he's actually ended up catching a fish within the first 15 minutes. And you're wondering what exactly did he do that you could not do? So obviously he knew what to do, he knew where to go, he knew where it was what the fishes wanted. So to catch a fish, think like the fish. If you really want to grab the attention of your participants, of your attendees, you will need to start thinking like them. It's the same case for your online sessions, for your classes. Today, what I'm going to be talking about has to do more with how to keep the attention span of your students, exactly like how Professor Chaudhary was talking about. Now, one of the major changes that has taken place right now is that all of us have had to adapt. I think even Professor Chaudhary, when he spoke earlier, when he began with his keynote speech, he talked about how important it was that during this unprecedented time, that all of us picked up the skills. So when we talk about this, I would come to the 21st century life skills. I know you're all waiting for the online practices part, but this is like a little foundation. The 21st century life skills, what it encompasses is basically skills like emotional skills, cognitive skills, leadership skills, creativity skills, collaboration skills, social and civic engagement. So if you look at things wherein you have things like organizing and entrepreneurship or excellence and influence without authority, you would have leadership. When you have something like cognitive skills, you'd have have things like lateral thinking, critical thinking, problem solving, and systems thinking. So this is the reason why all your teachers out there in the last 3 months, whether you're taught you the online method or not, you are the ones who quickly wanted to pick it up. Right now, even if you are sitting right now and watching me right now, it's because you feel the need to pick up on your skills. The emotional, the creativity. So this is something which is there right now on Google. So I won't get much into the details of it. One of the reasons why this came about, this 21st century life skills, is because what people felt was initially human beings had an agrarian economy. Then they went into an industrial one. Then they went into the IT world, the technological world. And right now what we are going through is exactly the same thing. Unfortunately, we are not finding our students, and in certain cases, even our own peers, our own colleagues, who are matching up to the needs of the society. So let me come to the next part, which is effective communication skills. Now, everybody has heard about communication skills. So what's the difference? I mean, most of you will say, oh, Sandesha, we already know this. Well, effective has a little bit of a difference, which actually makes a lot of difference. So communication skills, yes, you know the process of exchanging some kind of a message, but the effectiveness part of it comes when it depends upon the extent to which the sender has succeeded in making the receiver understand his idea. That means right now, I can just come here, talk for half an hour without even bothering to understand whether you have picked it up or not. Unfortunately, it's going to be very difficult for me to kind of gauge until I do some kind of an activity where I'm able to get your response, because the two-way communication process, which is generally seen in the classroom scenario, is missing in the online world. And the only way you can bring that touch of your classroom, that humane touch of a teacher and a student relationship, is when you have certain activities, and I'll show you through the process of the next half an hour how to go about it. So feedback, which makes communication two-way, is important because it helps to evaluate the effectiveness of the communication. For example, let's say that you go to a restaurant and you order for something, and the waiter comes in. And the waiter says, yes, what do you want? And you say, oh, I want to have 1 chicken biryani, I want to have 3 naans, and I want to have 1 palak paneer. And the waiter says, all right. And he goes and he comes back after 20 minutes or half an hour, and he brings chicken biryani, but he brings 3 rotis instead of naan. And he brings paneer masala instead of palak paneer. And you're like, this is not my order. Now, why was this error done? This error was done because the waiter did not bother to check with you, did not bother to repeat, did not bother to take a pen and a paper and write down the order. So only when the waiter in this scenario, maybe the manager might kick him out of the door, or he might cut his salary, that's when he might learn. I don't think most of us would like to learn that way. All right, so let's go to the next step. Planning. Plan is extremely crucial whenever you're planning any kind of online methodology. Less is more, all right? Keep it simple. Now, everybody, we're going to do a little bit of another activity, which is going to be a quiz. Please type menti.com, everybody. And once you type menti.com, so you can do this, get your mobile, or you can actually, if you're on a laptop right now, you can open up another website and type menti.com. Yes, you'll need to do this, all right? And you need to put in the code 549601. I will actually mention it right now so that it becomes easier. And I will stop sharing for this. Okay, so I hope you all got the code. The code was, let me just type it down, 549601. Okay. I hope you've got the code now. Yes, thank you so much. Okay, now I will show you what's going to happen. Just give me a second. So one of the activities that you can do, they are done for a lot of things wherein, let me just put down this chat box down. All right. So these activities, they kind of help you to kind of assess whether your students are paying attention or not. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to click on it. You don't have to look at my screen. You look at your screen wherein you're putting in the code. All right. I hope you all are ready because I'm about to begin. Very good. Can you see the right hand side bottom where the heart is kind of really going duck duck, I would say. A lot of people are joining in. Very good. I think people are aware of many. We have over 500 people on Zoom right now, and I believe we have equal number of people or even more on Facebook. All right. So if everyone's ready, I'm about to begin. The first question which I'm asking, don't worry, it's not a quiz, it's just a general one. What are the qualities that you think you possess? You, not me, you possess as a teacher. That is if you're a teacher. If you're not a teacher, don't worry. What are the qualities that you think a teacher should possess? Oh, somebody's typed word. Well, you need to type in a quality rather. Don't worry, it's okay. Oh, very good. Patience, empathy, kindness. All right. Communication skills, sincerity, discipline, influence, curiosity. Lovely. Communication, yes. Excellent. Patience seems to be like a top runner out here. Empathy, clarity. Very good. Very good. I can see some wonderful qualities. Open-mindedness, dedication, knowledge, obviously, yes. All right, very good, excellent. So as you can see, this word cloud is building up. So this is a way to kind of interact with your students, with your audience, and friendly, yes, I do agree. Good communicator. So a lot of people are saying communication because it's not showing up as a stronger word because people are writing good communicator, communication. So let me go to the next question. Did you know the difference between communication skills and effective communication skills before this session? That is before I told you what is the difference. 2 people are saying 4, 10, yes. Oh, we have no's. Thank you so much for your honesty. It's the honesty that counts out here. Thank you so much. So I'm glad that the people who did not know, I hope they know by now what is the difference. In fact, the 200 responses, over 200 responses of the Google form has shown me how active all of you are. The fact that you're actually staying up over here on a Saturday afternoon means a lot to us. And I thank the hosts, ABP Education for this, as well as the college, Surendranath College for Women. All right, so we have 74 people who said yes, they knew the difference, but we also had over 30 people who said no. All right, so let me go to the next part. Now comes the quiz. So everybody, get your fingers ready. Now, you have to choose an initial, or if you choose a name, then it could be very common, and maybe the winner could get a prize from the principal, sir, Professor Pandey. Okay, here we go. Everyone ready? I can see a lot of people are geared up. I have over 116 people I can see, right? Oh, over 120 people. Okay, let me wait for a few more seconds. Let more people get in. Okay, all right. So now the questions are going to come up. Let me just prepare you. Might necessarily have been something that you might know. Let's see how much you know. All right, so here we go. I'm about to begin in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here I begin. So the first question, all right, just hold a sec. Waiting for the players to come in. Wrong answer will give you 0 points. The faster you answer, the better it'll be. We're having an issue here. Okay, people are still stuck up on that question, I guess. Okay, here we go. A lot of people are joining up. Okay, hold on. This must be happening because there are people joining us from all over. So okay, hold on. I think there are 2 minutes. Hold a sec. you know, there's a saying in one of those Hindi movies कि बड़े-बड़े शहरों में ऐसी छोटी-छोटी बातें होती रहती है. So please be ready that such technical issues can come about. Not an issue. Let's see, because there are people, too many people joining up. So I think this is happening, but not an issue. Let me try this Menti after a while then. Okay, all right. Oh, now I realize what I did. Okay, now it should come in, everybody. Sorry about that. Okay, so everyone, the first question is, what is a netiquette? All right, so one second. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, thank you so much. Okay. So the thing that's happened is that too many people are getting, you know, online, and they're taking time to kind of get their okay. Okay, so the question that was asked was, what is a netiquette? And the choices was, it is a code of acceptable social behavior, it is a code especially used during a lockdown, or is it a code of good behavior on the internet? And 11 of you got it correct, 3 of you got it wrong. And let me continue with the next one. And I believe the fastest, the quickest person was Anvesha, who got it right. Not bad, good Anvesha, fastest person. All right. The next question which came about was, which one is not an example of netiquette? Which one is not an example of netiquette? And your options were replying to negative comments with more negative comments, don't swear or use offensive language, or respecting one's privacy by not sharing personal information. 2, 1, 10. All right. And we have 37 people who got it wrong, 23 people got it wrong, and then 31 people who got it right. That means there are people who still don't know what netiquettes are. Not an issue, okay? And the next question which came up, oh yeah, before we go to the third question, who got it right? Okay, I think the fastest person out here was Mehul. Mehul has jumped in. The fastest was Mickey actually, but Mehul got it because she got the other one right earlier. By the way, I realized what went wrong. I had forgotten to press the enter button and I was clicking on the arrow. So that's what happened. So who do you think wrote a book which was called Core Rules of Netiquette? Was it Guy Kawasaki? Was it Virginia 𝐭? Or was it David Paul Childs? All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the fastest person and the one to get it right, let us just see the answers. Well, the answer was Virginia 𝐭. 43 of you got it right, but over 60 of you got it wrong. And hopefully after this session, you'll never get it wrong. So again, I see Mehul is leading the way. And the fastest person was Mickey, but Mehul led the way. Which was the word? Now this is the interesting one. Which was the word which I did not dictate among the 13 words? Sorry, it's written 15, but it was 13 words. Was it dream? Was it bed sheet? Was it mattress? Or was it pillow? Remember, I asked you to pay attention. 2, 1, 10. All right. And the answer is bed sheet. Yes, very good. 64 of you were paying attention. The rest of you, sorry, or 50 of you got it wrong. Not a problem. And the person to get it right, obviously, is think Mickey's really fast. Okay, Mickey was the fastest. But Mehul, you won, so applause for you, because I think you must have got the earlier answers correct. So basically what happens, the answers have to be correct, and the faster you are, if 3 people are giving the correct answers, the fastest person that gets it. Now you can ask me anything. If there are questions, you can type in, you can ask me a question and it pops up over here. So this is one very good way of actually getting an interactive kind of a response from your participants or from your students. It could be when you are, actually a speaker at a webinar. You just have to be a bit careful, because sometimes if you don't press the enter button, then you might have the same problem I just now had. Okay, that was just a sample, and thank you so much. So now let me come to the part, which is, okay, so a lot of you are liking it. Thank you so much. And now I'll come back to my particular slide. So what exactly is netiquette? Okay, netiquette or network etiquette is concerned with the proper way to communicate in an online environment. And the online platforms, they would include email, social media, online chat, web forums, website comments, multiplayer gaming, and other types of online communication. So netiquette is one thing that nobody ever knew. I mean, they knew, they could understand, but they don't know what it entails. So today I'm going to give you a little bit of a fair idea about it. Virginia Shea, she actually wrote about the core rules of netiquette way before the lockdown, because obviously a lot of things are happening during the online phases. Rule number 1 is remember the human. That means do unto others what you would expect them to do to you. Rule number 2, you adhere to the same standards of behavior online that you follow in real life. And you don't tend to, for example, you wouldn't be saying something bad to somebody live, right? Same way, you wouldn't do the same thing when you are online. You would make sure that people, they're following the politeness, they're not being rude to each other. Next, know where you are in cyberspace. That means you have to kind of understand the cultural kind of values which are there. You might be interacting with somebody from a particular country wherein the person might not be able to understand what you're trying to mean, because you're using certain words which are only familiar in your particular area. All right. Next, respect other people's time and bandwidth. So what this means is that when you start a session, you have to start it on time, and you have to end it at the time which you more or less had mentioned earlier, that this is the time when we're going to end, because people might have planned something, people might have other things to do, and you know that we're sharing the bandwidth a lot of family members at the same time during these COVID-19 days. Rule number 5, make yourself look good online. This does not necessarily mean the physical of, the appearance of the speaker. What this technically means is your particular presentation. Your presentation has to be clear of any kind of mistakes, clear of any kind of grammatical mistakes, spelling mistakes, even the images, they have to be clear. If you're putting up some kind of a graph, you have to make sure that the graph, the images are not blurry. So they have to be very, very particular about these things. Rule number 6, you have to share your expert knowledge. What this basically means is exactly what we're doing over here. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but definitely I would say that whatever little knowledge that I have gained in the last 3 months is what I'm going to be sharing today. Because none of us, I mean, even I did not know what Zoom meant, except zooming past by somebody. I did not know what Zoom meetings were. It was only after the lockdown, and for this I salute all the teachers, school teachers of our country, because they were the first ones to actually get onto this entire bandwagon of online teaching and training. Because they were the ones who had to do it. I would also like to tell you that right now, you know the situation in the country, that many schools are having parents who are complaining about paying the fees. If they feel that initially the first few weeks they were like, oh, why should we pay the fees? You know, we're not getting the kind of service that we were having earlier. Why should we pay for this? Why should we pay for that? And that was also one of the reasons why a lot of schools, especially the private ones, they were very particular about getting their teachers to quickly adapt to the situation. Rule number 7, help keep the flame wars under control. What this basically means is, you know, when you have all these WhatsApp groups where people, they tend to say something which is provocative, which is kind of something which creates some kind of unruly kind of a feeling among the people. So what you need to do then is not get into those kind of arguments. You need to kind of control your temper, because that kind of a flame war will eventually create a lot of problems. Sometimes court cases end up because of such WhatsApp groups. Rule number 8, you have to respect other person's privacy. Okay, the entire thing is that you have to make sure that you don't just declare any news that you come to know of a person, maybe a personal happy moment that they got married, and you don't go on and tell it on the net, or you don't share it with people on WhatsApp groups. You need to first of all check with people regarding such things. If there's been a death in the family, you need to even check with the person whether they're okay about it being told and shared with other people. Rule number 9, don't abuse your power. I mean, in Spider-Man movies, you might have heard of this. With great power comes great responsibility. If you know something right now in the online world, make sure that you share that knowledge with people around you. Don't just try to, you know, keep that within yourself. If there's a problem and if you need somebody's help, whoever would be there listening and knowing about how this, you know, how I could work out that problem, would actually end up telling me, maybe through a chat or maybe by letting me know in some way or the other. Rule number 10, be forgiving of people. Make mistakes. I mean, this is, some things are not in our hands. If the electricity goes off, if the connection goes off, it can be possible that when the teacher, even in the morning today, when both my daughters are having their classes, there was this major issue where my younger one was waiting for 15 minutes and all the students are waiting. And then we later on realized that there was some technical glitch was happening. So these things happen. So these particular rules, these 10 rules, they've come in from the core rules of netiquette by Virginia Shea, as I mentioned. Now, why netiquette during COVID-19, during this particular time? Okay, why do we need to emphasize on this more than ever? As teachers, we do try reaching out to our students. Example, the technical needs, other concerns. Initially, the teachers were the ones telling the parents or telling the students how to use Zoom, how to use MS Teams, how to use Cisco WebEx, whatever. Adapt your teaching methodology to the available tools. Now, whatever I'm going to be talking right now is all going to be about the practical aspects. What do you have? All of us don't have laptops. Some of us might have initially just had mobiles. I mean, initially in the first lockdown phase, nobody even dared to go out, but people had to work. So they were using their mobiles for teaching and also for learning. Check your sources. Make sure that whatever you're getting from the world of the internet, you got to make clear that they're correct. And also you have to make sure that you always mention that where your sources have come from. Respect your students' opinion. Just because this is the online world does not mean that you don't listen to them. You have to give them a chance to speak up. And there are ways, you all know about it. On Zoom, we have these ways where we can unmute them. We have to teach them how to raise their virtual hand. We have to tell them how to put their questions in the chat box. Give all your students a fair chance. What we are seeing lately is that, especially like in the younger lot, the students, out of 40 students, there will be these 5 or 10 students who will continuously say, "Ma'am, I know the answer. I would like to say the answer." This is the same thing what you would have in the classroom. But the teachers, they very patiently, they keep saying, "Okay, can we just wait for the other person? The other person might be having a technical error. Let us give him or her 30 seconds or a minute." Like right now, all of you graciously gave me a few minutes, but kind of eventually got onto the Menti quiz thing. Same way. Give and take breaks. If you're having these very long sessions, you do need 5-minute breaks or 10 minutes breaks. Try being creative while assigning activities. I'm going to talk about a couple of group activities, which especially language teachers out here, if you're there, you will be able to use. And I'm sure you must be already using, but maybe I could give you some additional ones. Set a few ground rules, like you have to make sure that there are a lot of people who have profile names which are not the correct, the authentic ones, and they could be very funny, and they could kind of disrupt your classroom experience. Even the photographs, you have to be very careful that the photographs that they put up on their profile photos are not indecent, that they are able to be placed on such a social platform. Already mentioned, maintaining a decorum, like audio being muted, video on while entering the room or a meeting, avoiding unnecessary disruptions, not talking about phones, the attire, what you're wearing, even the seating. Like for example, right now I'm seated like this, but if I was seated like this, that itself would show you how much of attention I am paying to my own audience, all right? The other thing I asked all of you to, I request to fill this form. As I mentioned, already 200 people have filled up this form half an hour back. Initially, when I started, there were 173 people who had filled it up. So right now, as you can see, this is a very good way for you to kind of understand. Now, without seeing all of you right now, I know what's going on. I know that at least 35.8% of the people who the audience right now are between the age group of 31 to 40 years. The best part is it's always the women leading the way. You look at the gender, 52.6% of the participants are women. Way to go, women. All right. Next, the profile. What is the profile? 35.4% are university faculties. Thank you so much, the professors, the associate professors, the assistant professors, my colleagues from university. We have 20% school teachers. Thank you, school teachers, researchers, and we have 12% of them. Very good. Researchers, you're going to be our future colleagues. So welcome to this session. And then the others who are 28%. So the question I asked you is, are you comfortable with online teaching? Now, after 3 months also, we have 90% who say yes, and we have roughly approximately 10% who say no. Don't be surprised. They're not the only. This 10% is being the honest, the honest people. Now, I asked about the location. Amazing. I got amazing responses. I could not put all of them down. Kolkata obviously has to be there. But we have people from Delhi. We have people from all parts of the country, as well as we have somebody from Oman. I asked you the question, which are the online platforms used by you? And trust me, I'm not at all surprised. I have done this survey with more than 6 or 7 particular webinars. Zoom has always led the way. And right now, also 78.9% of the people right now are stating the same. This is the most comfortable, most user-friendly, platform that can be used for online teaching purposes or learning purposes. The other thing I want to mention is that there was one particular webinar where they were not using Zoom, they were using Cisco WebEx, and that was because they were librarians who I was addressing, and that particular university also was using the Cisco WebEx. Otherwise, even they had said that their preference would have been Zoom. Now I had asked a question, do you understand the term netiquette? And 76% said, roughly 77 had said yes, and 23% had said no. I then asked, how did you first learn about the core rules of netiquette? And approximately 57 of you, that's 31.7% of the people, said that they learned about it during the lockdown. Somebody said that they learned it from attending online webinars, similar to this. Thank you. I asked you people to rate and rate the examples of bad netiquette, and the blue one was something that you don't consider as a bad netiquette, the red one is something that you tolerate, and the orange one is that you cannot tolerate. And as you can see, there is this one particular part where I asked about people being undressed, and obviously majority of you just cannot tolerate it. And this has been happening in a lot of scenarios, unfortunately for us. And this is the reason why I want to emphasize on this fact that everybody, please be careful. It is summer. Be careful. Make sure that your videos are always off. Right now, what we are experiencing is like a Zoom webinar, but there are situations where we are not in a Zoom webinar, where we are actually having an interactive session wherein people are able to get their videos on and, switch off the videos, unmute and mute themselves. So be very careful. Another question which I asked is, do you think we in India need to make more aware of core rules of netiquette? Yes. 97.3% of the people have said yes. You won't believe this. After every session, I get people who send me videos. They send me photographs, and the kind of things I'm seeing, I'm just not surprised with this answer. Have you ever attended any of my workshops? There was a majority of them had not. So I'm glad. So one of the things is there's this one particular workshop which we've been doing in JNU, and we've already had 3 and we're going to have a 4th one. I started this in May 9th. I talked about netiquettes, and even in 3 months, look at this particular image. There's a person who's sleeping while a particular session is going on. Luckily, this is not my session, it's some other session. I am trying to hide the person's identity. The reason I'm doing this is I want to make you people aware. This is not something which was in the start of the lockdown. This is something which just happened maybe approximately just 10 days back. You can see this imagery. I think all of you can count and see the kind of fans which are being used in our country, because people, they don't even realize, most of the people on their mobiles, they just leave their mobiles on the table like this when they go out, and they don't even realize that it's on. Maybe they don't realize how to shut off their video mode. There are people who are eating and don't even realize. If you have to eat while you're watching a session, you need to switch off your videos. Even when you're cooking, there are people who are cooking and you actually had their husband helping them. This lady actually had her son also coming in. Not only that, but one of the most dangerous things is that she actually showed her entire kitchen and her room by mistake, because you know, people who take their mobile and they go around because they're trying to look for connectivity, they actually end up showing their houses. And when those recordings are getting recorded, they don't even realize that somebody else could actually end up burgling their house. Now, this is another question which I mentioned to you earlier. I have asked over here also, you can see over 60% of the people have mentioned about Zoom. Now, let me come to the part about tools. This is something which I use, which is down if you haven't already been using it. It's a very good way for you to kind of create your own wall of memories. Like I call it wall of memories because Linguistic Empowerment Cell, LEC, we had our classes, and after over 2.5 months of classes, the students were like, they were feeling a bit sad about, you know, missing out and not having their classes anymore to look forward to. So I created this wall of memories where they were allowed to leave something, and these are the kind of beautiful notes that they've written. Somebody wrote poetry, so a lot of people wrote about what they had gone through. Why I put this particular images, I want to show you something very important. Please look below. Can you see over here a word breakout rooms? I'm going to talk about breakout rooms. This amazing class group of mine, we did so many activities. We did team activities, like I gave them, I divided them into 4 groups. I put them into 4 different breakout rooms. And if you're using Zoom, then this is a wonderful way to do it. And when I put them into 4 different rooms, what happened then was that I would keep going in between each of the rooms, and then I would, if I wanted to broadcast a message, I could just send out a message, it would go to them, and then, you know, I would check on them. And the kind of activities we did was, for example, I told them a scenario that all of you are on a ship, and now the ship is about to sink, and you have a boat, and out of the 12 people, you can only save 6 people. And you actually tell who the 12 people are. For example, a Miss Universe, or maybe a scientist, or a mother of 6 children, a young man, a young engineer, an army colonel, retired army colonel. So you give them these, you know, 12 possible characters, and they are supposed to save 6 of those characters. Can you imagine the kind of decision making, the kind of, you know, communication that is taking place to get their message across? And the best part is the group has to think of themselves as one. That means they're together as one, making a choice to save the 6. It can't be like, oh, 6 people choosing any 6. No. Then a lot of other activities, like we've had a debate competition. So even the debate competition, what happened was I gave them choice to choose the topics. And how I did that was I formed a Google, like all of you know about Google Classroom. So I had a Google Classroom, and I asked the students to kind of give in their topics, and they would give in their topics, and then I'd go through them, and I would ask the class to decide on the best topics. Now, this is another thing which I want to show you about. A lot of the people among the participants are asking about how to do assessments and evaluations. So one particular way are these quizzes, these Google forms which can be made into quizzes. We created one for the VTOM series. This was from one of the speakers, Ms. Sunday Gunes. She gave me the questions and I curated them. She curated them and I kind of made them. And you can see immediately, like right now, like for example, while she was taking the session, her session got over, we immediately put up the question, like the way I gave you people the Google form link, and look at the response. We got 388 responses within the few minutes that we had put it up. We gave them a 5-minute break, and that is when they did it. All right, so this is one possible thing, which I'm sure most of you are already doing. These are the kind of questions that we had. You can put a point. If you look on the top right-hand corner, next to responses, total points. So there are questions 2 marks each question. One of the questions was not given a point. All right, it was a very it was something wherein we just wanted people to kind of answer to it without having any point system to it. And the good thing about Google Form Quiz is that you can actually see the kind of certain statistical analysis you can make over here. For example, you can come to know which is the question that majority of the people are getting right, which are the questions the majority of the people are getting wrong. Okay, so you can kind of understand that what are the reasons why the people. This is a very good tool to make you understand that either there is something wrong that you did while you were explaining as a teacher, that they could not understand the concept, and that is the reason why majority got it wrong, or is it because the way the question was framed? The framing of the question also matters, like how Professor Chaudhary spoke earlier. The content, the designing of the syllabus, everything matters. Even the presentation matters. It's the entire package. Now I'm going to give you an actual case study, and this is something which has just happened just yesterday to today. This is a live example. Few of you have written questions like, oh, how do we reach out to students in remote areas? How do teachers reach out to students in remote areas? Now, I actually belong to a community in Uttarakhand, and we are right at the borders, and right now we're all in the news because of the India-Nepal border thing. This is a place called Dharchula. There are a lot of schools out there, and lately I came to know that one of the schools is actually having a situation where the teachers are not getting fees in their school, and that is the reason why they are also having issues with their salaries. So when I came to know of this problem, I tried talking to them 2-3 days back, and I realized that they have only been using WhatsApp as a medium to connect to their students. Then I told them, are you aware about Google Forms? I actually got to speak, I got to connect to 4 of the teachers, and one young girl who is 25 years of age, she's actually teaching English to 10th standard students, and I won't give out her name right now, but this wonderful person, yesterday in that particular group, I actually prepared 3 short videos, the clippings of how to make a Google form. I just put it. I thought, let me just do it. Let me teach her. And I actually asked a colleague of mine, and I asked him, what should I use? He told me about 𝐿𝐶𝐴M. 𝐿𝐶𝐴M is a software. Please write it down. O as in the lowercase O, and then you have 𝐶𝐴M, all right? And my colleague is Dr. Sonu Saini. He's like a technical guru of mine out here in JNU. And when I actually did that, all of you can try this, I was able to make these 3 short videos, and guess what happened? Today morning, I got a message from that same young teacher, and she gave me a video back saying that, ma'am, thank you so much. I have learned how to make a Google form. And not only did she learn how to make a Google form, she also learned on her own how to make a quiz, because she kind of understood, like, a little bit. So she is actually going to work on it further, and I will be obviously helping her now after I finish up with this session. So it is possible. Everybody, we have to adapt to the situation. Exactly like how Professor Chaudhary said in the morning. I know all of us are going through a very difficult time right now. We are all in a situation, on the last time of my class, I actually had tears in my eyes. My students also, they also got emotional. I also got emotional. And my students, I told them, I wish I could reach out to all the remaining students who could not come in for our online classes because of various reasons. Because as you know, university students, they were going through a transition. They were either stuck in the hostel, some of them were stuck in their PGs, some of their tickets got cancelled. So there was a lot of painful moments for them too, and many could not join in. So I was also under a lot of pressure whether I should continue on with the classes. And mind you, nobody, my vice chancellor, no one put that kind of a pressure. I myself wanted to connect with my students. My students wanted to connect with me. And that's how we started. And I remember a beautiful thing what one of my students said. And she was from the history center. And she said, ma'am, don't ever feel sad that you actually took the classes for us. We are grateful for at least you thought about us. And that's exactly the thing that Professor Chaudhary was saying. We have to look for the ones that we can possibly reach out to. The others, we will obviously try. Next, I want to talk about something which is art integrated learning guidelines. Most of you who are language teachers, especially in schools, this is something which the NCERT has started. It's amazing. I have a kid, a 13-year-old in the 9th standard, and it's actually working out. They're actually integrating art into the concepts of mathematics, science, and languages. I think university teachers, let's not wait for some higher administrative power to tell us what to do. I think if you feel it is good, you can also use it. Like using that medium to teach whatever your topic is. It's amazing. Remember what I told you, the 21st century life skills? Then this is one thing. I was asked to do a session for a particular group of English language teachers, and I was supposed to talk about art integrated learning. All of you who recognize this particular beautiful, this is actually one of the treasures of the UNESCO heritage, and this is at the Sistine Chapel, known as the creation of Adam. And I created this with regards to this. And if all of you know this particular image, this powerful image, it actually has two very good spoofs. I'm not showing you over here. One spoof is actually of this particular, Adam is on the left, on the right you have God, and Adam is actually having a sanitizer in his hand, okay, believe it or not. So I actually put that spoof and I asked them, what is this spoof reminding you of, and who is the painter of the original, who is the artist of the original form? Then the other one that I put is of where Adam is there, and instead of God, there is a laptop. So then I asked the question about that. So that is a kind of interesting thing wherein language teachers, you could actually see how language, culture, they're interrelated. Science, maths, everything. This is the current online scenario at Indian homes. Yes, this is me in a red dupatta. Next to me is my older one, and then the other one is the younger one. This is the exact situation. In our house right now, my room right now is the only place where we get the best connectivity. So when we actually have to do our classes together, you can't imagine the pressure that we are under. This kind of pressure is not something that I'm looking forward to, and I'm really waiting for this pandemic to get over. A lot of people say that, ma'am, you have done over 15, 20 webinars. I'm sure you must be okay about, this online situation and the online mode of teaching and learning. I am like, no way. How can anybody in their right senses actually say that, yes, we are okay with this? We are not okay with it. We are just adapting to the situation. We are waiting for the situation to get normal. We are waiting for things to get back to the way they are. Till they aren't, this is what we need to do. Then I want to mention the sources. The sources from where I got the kind of images. And I want to thank each and every one of you for your time and your patient hearing. Thank you so much. By the way, this is JU's famous statue of Jawaharlal Nehru, and it's right next to the administration building. I welcome you all to JNU whenever things get back to normal. Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Professor Chaudhary.
Yes. Very good. Uma.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sandesha, for such a brilliant presentation. And you started from the 21st century life skills framework, and then about the effective communication skills, and what is effective communication skills. Then the Virginia She's netiquette, and it's so good that it deserves another repetition about being human, and the same behavior online as you would be doing offline, and knowing where you are in cyberspace. These are things that we didn't realize that the book was written in 1994. It would be so relevant even 26 years after that. Respecting other people's time, so very important for the online sessions. About sharing this expert knowledge, again something that this new situation has taught all of us. We've been sharing a lot of these things, and as I keep on saying, there are a lot of these free and open source software that we will keep on sharing about in times to come. About privacy, about flame wars. A lot of us are in a lot of WhatsApp groups. We end up having some flame wars, but it's extinguished very soon. The power of the online medium being forgiving, and the breakout rooms that you spoke of, and all the other techniques that you spoke of, they're extremely very important. And that wonderful quiz. I'm sure all of us are extremely empowered after all these three sessions. And all these three sessions, the first one was an overview of the phygital environment, as Professor Chaudhary says. The second one was about the entire content development and making our interactions a lot more friendlier, a lot more effective. And this one, about the netiquette and all the wonderful things that we as teachers can do. There are a whole lot of questions at the same time. Much of it has already been answered. So there's not, there are questions on assessment, and most of it has already been answered. So I wouldn't, keep on talking about those assessments. There is a question by Arijit Ghosh. It says, is there any scope for formative assessment on online platforms? So I'm just, saying, would anyone want to take this? Is there any scope for formative assessment on online platforms? So this is an open.
USP, this assessment, I would request Dr. Sandesha to speak. But what I would like to note here at this point is that this entire online education has 4 components: content generation, content delivery, and content learners engagement and learners evaluation. So in content generation, what Joy Chaudhary spoke was fabulous. And a part of it was also relevant to content delivery. Sandesha picked up from content delivery and learners engagement in a superb illustrative manner. So this is a real continuation of the entire concept from content generation to content delivery to learners engagement. Between the 2 panelists, we had a superb discussion covering these 3 areas. Maybe a bit less in both the presentation on content assessment and evaluation. I did mention as a comment, but then it needs furthermore. So if both I'm talking to both the panelists, anyone can take up content evaluation, content assessment. As you have rightly picked up the first question about formative assessment while the course is on, while the online learning is on, and summative assessment when the course is over, when the online learning of a particular paper or course is over. So I request Sandesha Madam and Joy Sir to look into the assessment and evaluation part and give a few comments on that.
Professor Joy, would you like to start or should I start?
Your wish, you can start off. I'm okay.
Okay, I'll just quickly say this.
Sure.
With regards to, because I think earlier also, I think when Professor Chaudhary was speaking, he had actually said that we would mention about different LMSs and everything. So we did not focus so much on the Moodles and the Google Classroom and everything, because that would have taken up, even this half an hour might have been less. We wanted to actually introduce, because in the 3 months we were expecting that most of you have already been using, what are the other tools, what are the other ways that which you could kind of go to the next level. But yes, if you are really looking at new kind of tools, there are other things in the market, as they say. There is something known as examiner.in, one of my colleagues from the School of Engineering of JNU. And I think if all of you have gone through the news lately, just a few days back, it has been covered by the media that the School of Engineering of JNU is one of the few engineering colleges in the country right now, which has completed its entire evaluation process via this particular tool. So please have a look at it. I am actually recommending it for people from the science and mathematics background, because as you know, certain LMSs are perfect for language people and certain LMSs are maybe more better for science and mathematics people. So that's one thing that everybody needs to know. Regarding the formative assessment, and Sir actually explained it beautifully already, so there's not much that I would want to talk about. But whatever I just now spoke about, the tools that I showed you ways by which Google form, like let me say I'm explaining something. Right now, if I had a quiz prepared, I would play that right now and then you would actually kind of reply back or I would come to know how much you have kind of understood, maybe that kind of a thing. Please try to understand that right now in this webinar, we have like hundreds of people. But in a classroom scenario, I would have 30 to 40 people. It would be easier for me to manage that kind of a crowd. All right. Then Professor Joy Chaudhary, would you like to take over? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sandesha. So when I talk about formative assessment, the first thing we need to understand is it has to happen continuously throughout the course. Because every time they go through a module, they go through a topic, the way they understand the topic needs to be assessed by you. All right. So, and when I talk about formative, it's important for you to understand because it gives you have to give a detailed feedback. Now, when you create the first activity or first assessment activity, you should make sure that it brings out all the aspects of Bloom's taxonomy, what I was talking about. All right. Did they understand it well? Did they gather that knowledge? Did they understand it well? Can they replicate it in a different scenario? Can they apply it in a normal, in a day-to-day scenario? So these are when you are setting up the questions. You got to keep thinking that what question should bring out the answer I'm looking for. And this is how you should create a formative, first activity-based assessment. Now, you also need to get into something which is called live lectures or live modules or live sessions with all your students. You can do it on any platform. You name it and you have it. So you have today, right now we are doing it on one platform. There are thousands of them. All right. So you have to, after every, let's say after every 15 days, 20 days, or 2 sessions, 3 sessions, all right, 3 modules, you create or you schedule a meetup. That's called a meetup. The way we discussed, if you remember, go back to the discussion I was doing, we spoke about something called creating a community, sending notifications. So when you create a community of that group, you have to have a live session with them once in a while, where you give them the feedback. And your feedback has to go through a certain process called a sandwich method. Remember this is very important. When I talk about sandwich method, I'm talking about first give the good thing, then give something which needs to be improved upon, then give good thing again. That's what we do, sandwich method, and give it to them. So give them feedback. This is how you create a formative assessment. Obviously, as Ujjwal sir said, that summative assessment has to happen later at the end of the course. And at the end of the course, I personally believe it should be a culmination of all the assessments taken together, all right, to create a summative assessment. I think that presumably answers to a certain extent. It is a huge subject. Thank you.
I would like to add a bit. Joy, well spoken, Sandesha, well spoken. Both of you really have regaled our audiences, and there are more than 500 thank yous to both of you, one after another. Indeed, that's a fabulous thing. But having said that, I'd like to also note that there is this aspect of in a formative assessment. The quiz thing and the Google form that has been explained so well by Sandesha, Dr. Sandesha, is very right. We can have continuous quiz, but it must be understood the continuous assessment or formative assessment should be with respect to the goals of the education, which have been framed at the beginning. As Joy has said that, Professor Joy has said that using Bloom's taxonomy. So there are certain goals. So same tools need not be applied for all types of formative assessment. As per the goals. Now, if you are testing memory, then something else. If you are testing internalization or understanding of a concept to be applied in some other contexts, then a different format. So there has to be interesting quiz developed and Google Forms developed for those quiz, and that can go even today. Sandesha has actually demonstrated a quiz actually being done through a Google Form. So this is so this makes our task tougher and more intellectual and more intelligent, both way, in every sense. And we need to really go to that level. This showing our degrees earned 20 years ago will not go for lifelong in this new economy, in the new normal. So we need to learn, we have to go back. I am above 50 and I'm telling it, we need to go back to school and learn from Umashankar and Sandesha and Joy. All of them may be much younger, maybe in their 40s or early 40s, but we need to learn from them. We need to learn from people in 20s and 30s. And let's be humble, because I know there are many professors of my age in this audience. We need to learn how to make Google Forms fast, how to make quiz fast, how to create a feedback form immediately. And the feedback itself should test the learning and the internalization of the knowledge. Because the feedback is not about good, bad, excellent, charming, amazing, not this. So going deeper, a feedback has to be meaningful. So the formative would be that. Summative can be open book exams. Open book. You can have your book open. You can refer to any website or things like that. But the question should be framed like that. Nobody can copy paste from anywhere, because the question is on a simulated situation. Question is on a case study which has not been taught and not easily available on Google. So ungoogleable question, now that is a different ball game. All the universities have been not all, I know, Most universities have been going back to 10 years question papers and creating the 11th year question paper. That cannot go anymore. That cannot go anymore. You have to think of how you ask questions which test the understanding of the topic and not the memory of the topic, not the memory of definitions. So it's not about definitions and classifications. It's about internalization of knowledge. And that understanding can be understood by case studies, simulated situations, problem solving, on the spot creative thinking, all these which are good terms but tough to implement when you make the questions. And the questions must be moderated at 2 or 3 levels, at least 2 levels, to understand that these are ungoogleable questions. These are uncopy-pasted questions. I mean, they cannot be copy-pasted. So these are my very ballpark initial understanding. I'm learning every day. Today I've learned a lot from Dr. Sandesha and Professor Joy. Thank you. Dr. Sandesha is a new acquaintance, no doubt. But Professor Joy, I know him for many years. But I'm amazed the way you brought in so many concepts in just 25 to 30 minutes. Thank you. Not because we are in the same university, but I'm genuinely amazed the way you did it. Thank you very much. 𝐬𝐴 sir. And 𝐬𝐴 deserves the biggest praise of raising this task. He is the man who one midnight sent me a WhatsApp, can we do this? Can you have AVP too? And Shivanmita and Achal, hats off from AVP group. You took it up immediately, made it, and in my opinion, the way people have actually participated and are asking comments, questions, and everything, I believe that we can think of a 2 days workshop, a detailed 2 days workshop with gaps in between because all time cannot be screen time, and a workshop where every audience member is participating in some way or the other. So we several Google, not just one Google form, several Google forms, several feedback forms, actually showing how summative and formative both evaluation can be done, actually showing topics from sciences and non-sciences, how content can be created, how aggregation of content can be done, how unique content can be created, what is MOOCs and what is not MOOCs. Both may be online, but MOOCs is a different thing, and then cloud-based LMS and MOOCs-based LMS. So there could be a much detailed discussion, and obviously it will not be over in 2.5 hours. Only the evaluation, and that too only formative evaluation may need 2 hours. But 𝐬𝐴, you have put fire behind our, you understand what. Thank you. Thank you, 𝐬𝐴.
Professor Chaudhary, Dr. Pandey, just before you might just quickly, there is something that I wanted to bring. Maybe that will come up with another discussion topic, but quickly I will talk about this. There is a little bit of a debate going on among the faculties also. People are saying things like, oh, what you are doing via Zoom is not exactly online education. Online education is actually something else. What you people are doing is actually emergency remote teaching, wherein you're reaching out to people in a situation, in an emergency kind of a situation, whereas online kind of teaching actually required you having a proper planning, strategizing, creating that content exactly like how both the Professor Chaudharys have spoken about, wherein you had the MOOC programs, you have the Moodle programs, you have the SWAYAM programs, a lot of these programs. I completely get that. I have also had a talk with one of my colleagues. My colleague had an interesting point to that. He said, okay, even I completely get what they're saying, that we are an emergency remote teaching kind of thing, but we are also doing online teaching. And not only that, if they consider themselves to be online, doing the online mode of teaching, that should be actually considered as a passive one, whereas ours should be an active one, because we are the ones doing the actual interaction. Whereas those SWAYAM and MOOC models are actually recordings. You're actually just play a YouTube video. That is not going to give you the same kind of instant feedback wherein you have through a Zoom or a MS Teams or that kind of a, what I was talking about, the two-way communication process. So I think there is going to be a debate. People are going to talk about a lot of things, but at the end of the day, anything, for God's sake, anything, just get to the thing, get on board and connect with your students. Your students need you. I want to give you a very, very live example of another situation which happened just 3 days back. I will not name the university. A university who had invited me last week for a webinar. I was one of the speakers. They called me a few days back and they told me, ma'am, do you know this professor from so-and-so university? I said, yes. They said, ma'am, can you call him up and can you explain him how to use this particular, I won't name the platform, how to use that platform? I said, no problem. I called up the professor. The professor was a retired faculty in his late 60s. He is right now in another city, not in Delhi. And that professor, after 5 minutes, he's like, why do I need to go to another platform? I'm happy with Zoom. I want to use this. I'm not ready to use another one. Because he was not ready maybe for the change suddenly, which is exactly what Professor 𝐾𝐲 Chaudhary is saying. It's not only learning the new things, it's also, quickly learning all the other new things, which even I'm in my 40s, it's getting difficult for me at times, but I'm picking up. So definitely for their 60s and people in their 70s, hats off to you. The reason why I asked you your age in my particular Google form is because I'm proud to say that there are so many people in their 60s who are attending these webinars. Hats off to you people. It's not easy, but you're doing it. And yours is the most difficult age group, because remember one thing, people in the 40s have children in the teenage years who will teach them. People in their 60s don't have their grandchildren, most of them. So they don't have anybody to teach them during the lockdown. And this is the reason why we are losing out on some amazing professors talking, not because they're not good. They're very good, but they're not able to get onto the bandwagon of this online kind of mode of teaching. So thank you so much, Professor 𝐾𝐲.
I really appreciate you remembering the senior professors who may not be technically great, but they are knowledge-wise extraordinary. And we need to reach out to them, because technology can be learned, but their wisdom of lifetime cannot be so easily learned. Over to our moderator, sir.
Thank you so much for all these fascinating inputs. And there have been so many unintended learnings also in these last 3 months from COVID-19, for example. When we hear our own speeches on the recorded things, we realize where we were going wrong. We were going very fast. We had to, put this accent correct. And there, our headrooms were not correct. So many other unintended things. Plus, learning the intricacies of the software, I must, take this opportunity to thank all the senior teachers across all the colleges and universities of Bengal. I know they were the first ones to pick up all the things and to, make them. There was no institutional mandate. They did it on their own. Many of us, started off with Zoom, but we had to, change over to some other thing because there were many issues. And once an issue starts coming, you have to give up. We didn't even realize that, I'll just name it because it's free. The Google Suite for Education was free. We didn't even realize at that point of time. We learned that it is free and, it is available for us. So it is a very good learning experience, and, the pedagogies have kept on improving. So initially it was just, like a classroom shifted to some other platform. Now the pedagogies, the kind of content creation that Professor Chaudhary spoke about, of the digital content creation, all these, pedagogies kept up, and, people were, made to use their very simple things that they had at home and, they could make use of. So it's been a fascinating thing for teachers as well, because, when the creative juices keep on flowing, and that's when, everything starts getting better and better. Most of the questions, hundreds of them, all of them have been answered, and that speaks, volumes about the depth of the panel that we had today. Now is the time for the vote of thanks, and
Dr. USP, before you propose the vote of thanks, there are repeatedly questions asked if people don't have Android phone, if people don't, even if they have Android phone, there is a net connectivity issue and all that. See, first of all, teachers are not responsible for pandemic COVID-19. I'm sure you'll agree to that, because you are all teachers. Secondly, we are not responsible for the society to be class-wise and economically divided, which has led to digital divide. But the point is, we have to find out solutions. No point of lamenting, because the lamenting and cribbing is the easiest way to avoid responsibility. So if nothing is working, make a WhatsApp chat and let it go. Do you know that in Meerut, in an underdeveloped area where there were very less Android phone, the headmaster started giving lessons for 2 hours a day by mic? Do you know that? By loudspeaker from his home? I know it's an extraordinary situation and extraordinary solution that cannot be done everywhere. But I'm saluting that headmaster, who is the headmaster of a school having poor children, and most of them, 95% of them, do not have Android phone. So he started in that mohalla with that mic, 1 to 2 hours a day, and for different batches sometime and all that, basically school boys and girls. Now, that's an extraordinary solution. I'm not saying that everyone start doing it, depending on. My one professor of Adams University of History did not get net connectivity at home in Bakura. He was locked in Bakura with his parents, locked up during this lockdown period. And he walked 4 miles to an open field with a large banyan tree. On the top of the banyan tree made a wooden platform, and with old broken umbrellas, he made a cover, and he started teaching from there through the mobile. He did not have a laptop with him because he had gone once just like that to visit parents from Calcutta and got locked down there. So he started teaching on mobile and with all the notes written in hand, and even explaining and understanding questions, and then even getting back. He started doing that. He started giving audio through the WhatsApp group. He started making his own solutions, because we need to do that. That is what, and that's what 𝐬𝐻𝐿𝐻 has just now said, that we salute the teachers many times without a mandate from the top. We started doing things on our own. See, it's not about justifying. I do not justify online. I am in favor of blended learning, online and physical together. But this is a situation that we have to face. And keeping on asking the same question, what do the teachers do because the people don't have Android? This is not a problem you and I have created. This is the society's problem. This is a problem of a class-divided society. And this is a question of political economy. But that does not mean that I don't reach out to my poorer students. Even through WhatsApp, even through Facebook. And almost 99% of our students are on Facebook. I mean, very poor students may not be. And very young children may not be. So we need to find solutions in a very creative manner. Some schools have started giving a task. Find 5 new words from whichever records you have, newspapers or from the books or whatever books are there in your home. 5 new words a day. Create your own dictionary and share in the WhatsApp group. 40 students, 5 new words, 200 new words. And out of the 200, 30, 40 may be common. So everyone is learning 150 words. And give an example of a sentence using that word in the sentence as well. A unique way of creating vocabulary. Some people have started that every day you have to put one creative thing, small video on the WhatsApp group. Sometimes it could be a small song that you have sung. Sometimes a new recipe you have learned from your mother. School children, I'm talking school children, not higher education. Sometimes it could be a small dance, of 1 minute dance. So your video should not be more than 1 minute. 40 students sending 40 minutes of videos, everyone is seeing, cheering, nice and all. What a mental health also is a positive mental health. So we need to find newer and newer solutions. Yes, some of the things have been mentioned by the 2 erudite scholars. Maybe we need a detailed one that 𝐬𝐻𝐿𝐻 and AVP and we can all discuss. We need a detailed one, the way people are suggesting a more in-depth workshop. That's something that we need to do. Even I need to learn. This is my selfish interest. I need to learn from 𝐻𝐿𝐻 and others that we can call. So, 𝐬𝐻𝐿𝐻, please, sorry to intervene. I know you were closing, but sorry to intervene.
Well, thank you so much, sir. It's always a pleasure to listen to you. And thank you so much for so many things that to discuss and so many takeaways from one single webinar. It's really, really nice. And we've been getting all such positive feedback all over, on Facebook, on WhatsApp. We've had Father CM Paul from Darjeeling. He just messaged me, from Salesian College, Sonada, about, how he's enjoying, and his colleagues there as well. Thank you so much, everybody. I'll have to, first of all, thank the, Teachers Council and the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of my college, Surendranath College for Women, for first, thinking of this particular webinar. So all credit to the teachers, the non-teaching staff, and our governing body members for giving us the mandate to go ahead with this kind of webinar. Thank you, colleagues. They have all been also there, and thank you especially to our principal, Dr. Purnima Vishwas. She called me before the webinar, and she asked me to conduct it on her behalf. So she has been behind the scenes and a pillar of support, helping us in every way she can. Now, one person, if I go to him with some idea, I come back enriched, and the idea becomes bigger and better. And that person is Professor UKC, Professor Ujjwal Kumar Chaudhary. And that is why, the first sounding board is him, because I know the result would be astounding. And he's always, so fresh of ideas, so full of energy, even at, 1:30 in the night. And you call him again at 6 in the morning. And he is the sole reason that, we could, bring it up at this particular level. Thanks to avpeducation.com, Shivanita Chaudhary and Achal Dalmia, they've been so efficient and they've organized it so well, that we didn't have to think about anything. Just this morning, I was informed that 2,800 registrations. It all, went off, behind the scenes. Thank you so much, Dr. Sandesha. I heard a lot about you. Thank you that, we are, I could hear you online for the first time. Thank you for agreeing, from all, the wonderful work that you do. We know that, you are very much involved with a lot of academic and other activities, and it's very difficult for you to, keep space for a program like that. And you were here for all of 3 hours. And, there are so many things that we could learn from there. Professor 𝐬𝐲 Chaudhary, thank you so much. Again, somebody I'd heard about, I didn't know about you. Professor Ujjwal had so many good things to say about you. So we knew that when Ujjwal is saying that it has to be like that. So
thank you so much. Thank you.
It is extremely enriching for all of us. Thank you again on behalf of Surendranath College for Women, the Internal Quality Assurance Cell, the Teachers Council. Thank you, Ujjwal, once again. Thank you, Achal. Thank you, Shivanita. Thank you, Dr. Sandesha. Thank you, Professor Joy. Thank you, all our colleagues, 500 of them from all over the country. We have people from Gulbarga, we have people from Bangalore, we have people from Delhi, from
Uma Shankar, there is Professor Madhav Chandra Das from Chittagong University thanking all of us. From yes. Chittagong University of Bangladesh.
Madhav from Chittagong, we had a colleague from Nigeria, we had colleagues from Oman.
Yeah, Nigeria, Oman, yes.
Sir, there is somebody from Nepal also. Yes. I just saw a message. Nepal, our neighboring countries are also with us.
Yes,
and we're all going through. We're all sailing in the same boat. As far as teaching is concerned, as teachers, we want to connect to our students, and we know it does not matter. No boundary, nothing is going to stop us. So that is important. I mean, nobody can take away the relationship that a student and a teacher has. Hats off to all the teaching fraternity out here. I would like to I'm quickly just thanking Professor 𝐬𝐲 Chaudhary, because I got to learn from him also. Professor Ujjwal K. Chaudhary, everybody kept saying 𝐤𝐾𝐶, and I kept wondering who is 𝐤𝐾𝐶, and then I realized who 𝐤𝐾𝐶 is. And I hope I get another opportunity to be on the same panel as 𝐤𝐾𝐶. And Dr. Uma Shankar Pandeyji, thank you so much for the invite. Thank you to the principal. Thank you to APP Education. And thank you to the wonderful participants who've been here since 3 o'clock with us. Thank you so much. Thank you.
One announcement to make, if I can. We from the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Surendranath College for Women, are planning a 5-day session on free and open source software. There will be one on OpenShot, which is a video editing software. There will be one on GIMP, which is a photo editing software. There will be one on Scribus, which is a desktop publishing. There will be one on Blender, and there will be one on Audacity, which is an audio editing software. So teachers from other departments will also find it interesting, and we'll have many more sessions like that. There are many other plans that I have with 𝐤𝐾𝐶, sir. It is not to be disclosed now, and hopefully, we will keep up these things and this blended learning, this online environment, because otherwise it would have been very difficult to get people like Dr. Sandesha all the way from JNU to Calcutta. So the online environment provides us with that kind of an opportunity. So online, according to me, has been more of a blessing. This COVID disruption has led us to some very, very positive changes, and I'm sure teaching and learning will be a lot more creative, a lot more fulfilling in days to come. Thank you.
Dr. Pandey, sorry for interrupting you, but please don't forget, once this pandemic gets over, I would like an opportunity to come to Kolkata and actually see your college firsthand, because that's a different thing. I mean, one thing everybody must remember, that the actual live experience, nothing can beat that. The smell, the sounds, and the sights of Kolkata or any city, any area, that is a class apart. Just sitting and understanding through the virtual world is not enough. You can see a polar bear, but when you see a polar bear live, the actual the cold that a polar bear feels, that you will only feel when you're there. So those things are important, and thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. There is this standing invitation from Surendranath College for Women, and also from my side. I stay very close to Belur Math, so please come over whenever you can. We'd love to host you here. Thank you so much. Thank you, 𝐤𝐾𝐶 sir. Thank you, 𝐬𝐲 Chaudhary sir. Thank you, Shivanita. Thank you, Anshul. Thank you, everybody at avpeducation.com. Thank you, everybody at Surendranath College. Thank you.